no telling where we've been. And all I know is that if you can't find me, you may never want to find me again. 'Cause people don't understand. People don't understand. People like me.
Hey guys, Scarlett Johansson here. Okay, it's not really me. This is an AI version of me, but our society is heading to hell anyway, so let's pretend it's actually me. Tonight on the Barroom Podcast, we got Rob Motto, the man without a job. We got my girl, Cult Classic Cage, on tonight. We got Orange Hat Reviews, even though he's a bit of a weirdo. C.S. Johnson, who never seems to shut up, despite never showing her face. Rick Aragon is the man who is never on time for a show, and he's probably eating Whataburger right now. Nerdigans will surely tell us about some Japanese shit no one asked for. Cider is somewhere getting higher than Building 7. Pete is, well, Pete. Finally, our host for tonight's show is Society Reviews. Hey, gorgeous. Well, I'm off to film another dumbass superhero movie Disney won't pay me for, but hey, at least I don't have to fuck Harvey Weinstein again. Let's get the show started.
Bam, how about that? We're finally spending a little bit of money here on the show. We're even getting celebrity endorsements. You guys enjoy that one? I see we bullied some people into actually joining the show, showing your face here tonight. So
fucking weirdo. Really? Fucking weirdo. That's the best you could come up with.
I don't see any lies. I mean, welcome everybody to the Barroom Podcast. This is episode 49, and we got a packed show here tonight. We got some guests that'll be joining us along the way. We got some new guests joining us here for the first time. So I'm gonna go ahead and just go around the horn here. Let's start off with you, Mr. Orange Hat Reviews. Newly shaven Orange Hat. How you doing today?
Liberated.
Freshly cut. Someone who we bullied into showing their face here, Miss C.S. Johnson. How you doing today?
Hi everyone. I'm not being held hostage or anything. Yay.
Blink twice for yes.
That was convincing.
We got Mr. Rob Motto joining us here on the show tonight. How you doing, Rob?
Oh, I'm good. I actually start my new job on Friday, so fingers crossed. We'll see what happens with it.
You have to change the intro already, Jacob.
Oh yeah, right. We got Cole Classic Cage joining us here tonight. How you doing, Cassie?
I'm sleepy.
We have our first late straggler joining us here tonight, Minnesota Mongo Slade. How you doing today, Mongo?
I'm all right. I barely made it. How y'all doing?
And then someone who are moving into Center Square for right now is person joining us for the first time here tonight. Now, look, we've known each other for so long. I think you've gone through a couple of names. So I'm just going to introduce you to our audience as Zeitgeist Reviews. Go ahead, give kind of a backstory here. You kind of started at the same time that I did when we were trying to build up our channels, talk about movies, talk about things that were going on in the Hollywood industry, the way they were affecting movies and television. And essentially your system was a more complex system to mine, where I would basically just watch a movie, tell you what's in it, tell you what they're trying to push, things of that nature. You would go much more detail to where you can go on your site and essentially check and see, okay, how woke is this movie? What agenda are they pushing here? Or if it's just a regular popcorn film that I can go in and watch with my family and not have to worry about being subverted in any kind of way. So I want to give you a couple of minutes to give you the floor here to kind of introduce you guys to our audience here and kind of go back your background and what you've been doing over the last few years, man.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Once again, thank you for having me here. And sorry if it lags or something like that. But anyways, my name is Michael. You can just call me Zeitgeist Mike. When we first knew each other and we're kind of in contact, I started it. I don't know if you knew it back then. I first started it just out of pure rage because I just got so sick of all the crap in Hollywood. So it was called stfuhollywood.com.
Yep.
And then I would kind of practice it, and I would talk to boomers and be like, hey, here's my card. And they're like, what does STFU mean? And I was like, well, it means shut the F up. And they're like, oh, my heavens, you should change that. And I'd try to get advertisers. They're like, oh, the cursing. I'm like, no, it's Bill O'Reilly says BS on TV. I was like, all right, look, I'm just going to scrap it. And I think it's very catchy. The other name I came up with is Right Wing Tomatoes. I was like, that's perfect. People get it. I don't have to explain anything. Immediately, you get the idea. It's a right wing version, whatever. But then it started to attract Charlie Kirk types, and they didn't really get it. I wasn't like that. And I've been doing this for years, and I started to get sick of the right wing just as much as the left. I think most people were just I'm just burnt out. I'm just so sick
Yeah.
of all of the agenda, whatever. So the latest and last name, I promise you, this is the last name, ain't going to change it again, is zeitgeistreviews.com. Yeah, there's a bunch of filters. We can get into it. I think you're talking about, I saw on the headline for the show, there's the Rooney Rule, so we can get more in detail, but about the forced diversity. And basically, last thing I'll say, and I'll pass the mic, is that this is a fine line of walking. You want to fight against the wokeness and, forced diversity, and every show's got to have like 5 gay this and trans this, but like, how do you push back against that without being labeled a Nazi or by, getting pigeonholed as like an alt-right site, and then no one wants to advertise, no one wants to go on there. You think you're a honeypot. And so that's why I'm trying to rebrand somewhere in the middle. I accept everybody, but you can filter the BS.
Yeah, I mean, look, obviously, like Society Reviews, the site that I've been doing, Bounding in the Comics site we're working with now, we've all had that same issue where we try to speak out about the things that are happening, then immediately you get labeled the right-wing terror name of the day. So back then it was the alt-right, then at some point it became whatever Nick Fuentes' group was at some point. Then we became Ultra MAGA. I think it's the one that they're currently trying to push now. So it's like, it's been multiple things. But since we're still waiting for a couple other people to get here, I think a good way to start off this show and to kind of bring you in is the discussion that we had about Cate Blanchett. We talked about this film, what was it, Tar, that came out, I think it was like late last year. It was an Oscar nominated film. I don't think she won for that role. I think they gave it all to Everything Everywhere All at Once, but we'll talk about that a little bit later on. But Cate Blanchett here was on, I think it was the Cannes Film Festival, the one that's going on in France right now, and she's talking about essentially installing her own version of the Rooney Rule for her production company, where she's requiring that women and minorities be interviewed for jobs, so that way they won't be excluded in the hiring process. So let me go ahead and jump out here. This is an article that we released on Bounding yesterday. Ever since the age of Me Too, you can tell that a lot of these actresses who probably maybe or may not got with Harvey Weinstein to begin with have been using this situation as an opportunity to advance their own career, and by saying that now we're going to fight for women, because apparently women have never been empowered in Hollywood up until like 3 years ago. That's the narrative that they're going with here. But sitting down and talking with about her upcoming productions, both a TV show and a couple of movies that she's working on, she was talking about the issue of diversity and inclusion in Hollywood, and how her production company is joining a lot of major studios by having diversity and inclusion mandates, to where you have to have a certain amount of minorities, women, people of color, both in front of the camera and behind the camera. So we'll jump down here just a little bit. So she's working on an FX series called Miss America. There's also another film that she's working on. I think we'll get to that later on here, but she's talking about her experience of being a woman in Hollywood, and she says that while talking about movies that she's worked on, she says, we're sitting around the table one day, we're like, let's just make a list, make our best efforts without drawing breath. Suddenly we had a list of 70 women who were all completely qualified, capable, and inspirational. Just a quick little pause here. We hear this all the time from Hollywood people saying that, oh, there's so many good women who are worthy of writing good things. Rob, how many times have we sat here and watched movies over the last year written by women who clearly were not qualified for the job that they were written on?
Too many.
Way too many. We'll just put it that way. You can go back and listen to our past movie reviews if you don't believe us. But she talks about moving on from Miss America at Hollywood at large by saying that, thus realizing how easy it was and how lazy it was, how lazy the industry has been in its neglect and to its detriment of not hiring women or minorities in these roles. She said there was a profound malaise that is a level of homogeneity at work, because people behind the scenes, behind the lens, who are making the work are too homogeneous. Excuse me. Yeah, there's way too many big words on here. I don't know why Spencer didn't edit this out. And now he says that now we get a diverse perspective, and not just talking about gender and sexual orientation and cultural diversity and racial diversity. I'm talking about generational diversity. So I talk about, so I think when work comes really exciting, I think that's what we're doing with Miss America, she says. So like I said, promoting her TV show there. But then she goes on to talk about her production company, which was Dirty Girl, I believe was the name of it. I think we just found Dirty Films Production Company. That's the name of her company here. So she talks about making diversity a rule, a priority moving forward. She said, we made a rule basically for every single member of the crew, for every position, that you must interview a woman, you must interview a person of color. This is coming from Coco Francini, who is the co-producer and co-owner of this company. And yet pushing people people towards the goal brought out of all of these very qualified people that we just haven't met before, that we haven't been pushing towards. Finding our crew was incredible, and lots of women behind the scenes, not just directors. So I believe Blanchett talked about this here, right here on the corner. She's talking about a past movie that she worked with where she noticed that there were too many men behind the scenes. And this is not the first actress that have done this. We've seen many actresses have done this over the years. But she says that I look forward to the day where we don't even need to have interviews, talk about women in cinema where, you know, it's a non-issue. We both have our experiences. We've walked around the set. We've done the head count. And you wonder why you sort of feel alienated and annoyed some days. It's because you realize you get around the block, you do a head count, you realize that I'm the only woman in the cast here for a block through. It says there's 62 men. Yep, I'm the only woman. So imagine being privileged enough to be on a movie set. You're going around taking head counts of how many people with vaginas are on your set. He says, and now do that. The ratio is bad, and now you go, oh, I'll do it tomorrow. Okay, there's 37 men and 3 women. So hey, you got a couple more women there. No, that's not good enough. He said it's not even like the ratio is 7 to 5. It's really disproportionate. He said you're always laughing at the same jokes. Do I really have? I said I really do have a good sense of humor, but let's change things up. So this is her argument, basically saying that, hey, look, we need to do something because there's just too many men behind the scenes as cinematographers and people who hold the camera and all the other dirty jobs that women probably don't want to do anyway, but we need to change that up. So the reason why I mentioned the Rooney Rule here, because if you guys are NFL fans, you know that in the NFL, they mandate no matter what the coaching position is, you have to hire a minority candidate. Even if you've already selected who the head coach is going to be, you have to give somebody an obligatory interview, even if they don't get the job anyway. Now, some people have complained about this because, well, you're not actually interviewing somebody for the quality of the job because you've already selected it, so it really doesn't make any difference anyway. But the NFL has doubled down on this. Now they're making like draft picks compensatory to diversity hiring behind the scenes, and this just goes on with the film mandates we've seen behind the scenes. California last year is passing a bill that is going to give productions tax credits if the diversity of their production matches the state demographics. So because the state's like almost 50% Hispanic at this point, your production has to be like that same amount if you want the film credits, basically mandating diversity through the government. Then you have, of course, people like GLAAD CEO Sarah Kate Ellis, who is calling on major studios to have LGBTQ characters in 50% of all films by next year. So this is a mandate that's going on in Hollywood. This isn't just people, going crazy or pointing things out. This is what they're pushing in the industry right now. So I'll go ahead and start off with you here, Mike. You've seen all of this. Now you're vindicated because now they're admitting that, yeah, this is exactly what we're doing here. What do you think about Cate Blanchett's, I guess, push for her own personal Rooney Rule within her company and other studios following suit here?
I think I got 2 takes on it. Is the first is this is part of why I started to distance myself from the right wing, is that the in the current zeitgeist, the right wing that's allowed is basically just libertarian, and it's just free market, just be a cuck for big business, just anything they do. And so the left will always win because they literally use the state to do that. And I started to do research, and I think it was Maxine Waters, actually, same thing. It was BET. They said, hey, they cried racism, and then they got state funded, money. And then all these companies hire people because they can do it. And this is true, like in every industry, whether it's Raytheon or something like that. They get, if their CEO is a woman, they'll get grants from the government. So like every institution is doing this. And I know Razorfist talked about ESG, and like his whole thing is go woke, or what did he say? He said go broke, go woke, and then croak or whatever. So basically, it doesn't matter if they make a profit because they still will get money from the government. And I think the more the trajectory that America's going, we're getting more and more socialist, and people like Elon Musk understand you got to have a foot in both camps. So you get the grants from the government, but you're also private sector. Like I think that's the case. And right now, the typical right-wing Republican person who says, this is the same thing with big tech censoring right-wingers. It took forever. There's a guy, I forgot his name at the moment, but he talked to some people at CPAC, and he was saying, like, look, we need to fight against Twitter censorship, all this stuff. And they said, don't worry about it. Free market will fix it. And then finally, after Trump lost this time, they go, oh crap, now. And it's a little too late. And this will never end until we use the government or, national divorce or something. Like, we need to understand that the government's part of it. It's not just the free market will fix it, because they'll censor. That happened with Gab. We've seen it. That we'll have a better alternative.
Parler too.
Exactly, and then they'll collude. Everyone that banned Alex Jones on the same day. It was Apple, it was Twitter, it was like Facebook. I forgot what it was, but it's like
Google.
they collude behind the scenes, and they're and the free market. I'm sorry, alone won't fix it. And then the second take, real quick, is part of what's made me more kind of like zen about a lot of this is I don't take left wingers and virtue signalers in good faith.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, I don't know. So I don't take them in good faith. Because we would argue, I remember back in the early anti-SJW days, it'd be like, oh, look at them get wrecked or whatever. And there's that lady from NTV's Decoded, and she'd say, black people can't be racist because it's power plus privilege or whatever. They just move the goalposts. And it's the same thing. I don't think she gives a crap about women or anything. She wants to virtue signal. And so if you take it from that point of view, we can show them all the stats all we want and show all of the female-directed movies that failed. It doesn't matter. She's doing it for different reasons. And that's my take.
Yeah, I think that's part of the problem. Like I said, I think we all kind of went through like the same cycle of like politics, like over like the course of since like 2016, since Trump, basically, where we tried to do it, kind of like the old school, like Reagan conservative type of way. It's like, oh yeah, we'll get it to like the free market. But then once you start realizing just how rigged the game is, especially on the government, like I said, on the government level, like we're not just talking about businesses and companies anymore, because now the government is getting involved. It's not just on the state level. Is getting involved on the federal level. So when you realize that you're not just dealing with the entity of the free market, which honestly probably hasn't existed in this country in quite some time. I mean, when's the last time that you actually had a free market where the government didn't get involved in your daily affairs? And now we're pushing the window so far to the left that now, hey, your money that you're going to have pretty soon is going to be controlled fully by the government. So for me, it's like I see how she's trying to pander to Hollywood, because like I said, you have to understand that these people, I hate to be dismissive, they're not very smart. They all live kind of like in a bubble where they only hear like these narratives that only people in their own circles talk about, right? So she's kind of going off this narrative that up until Harvey Weinstein fell, that women just never got an opportunity to write or direct or really have a chance to do anything, right? When in reality, these people didn't get the opportunity because they just weren't good enough to begin with. Like, we're talking about writers who have done Rick and Morty and like other like subpar like television shows that all of a sudden getting like directorial jobs at Netflix. They're getting $200 million budgeted movies based on like no experience whatsoever. And you sit there and you're forced to watch this movie. It's awful. And then you Google who the director and writer is. It's like, oh, this person has absolutely no credits whatsoever. How did this person get a movie? Usually the way the Hollywood used to work, you would have to do something small and kind of build your way up to getting these major productions. Now they're just being handed. It's like, why is it happening? Because, oh, we have mandates now that says that we have to, or we're not going to get greenlit. So because Hollywood's never going to stand up against the oppressor because they're part of the problem, this is what we're going to end up getting now. So,
but see, that's the thing is like you can get to a certain point through who the relationships, networking. If you're someone's kid, you do not stay and keep getting opportunities if you don't have a track record of being successful. It's that is fundamentally true. And Cate Blanchett sort of arguing that there needs to be more women. It's like a lot of these things that she's talking about are technical, positions. They take a great amount of craft and understanding to operate the lights and the cameras and all the things that the director's sort of asking for out of a production. And I'm sorry, I naturally believe that men will always be drawn to these positions more, percentage-wise, more than women are. Doesn't mean there aren't women cinematographers or whatever, but they are. But generally, I think that's just going to be a natural allure for men over women. So I just think that that's natural. But actors are very stupid. This is why I feel bad for them. Actors are constantly vying to be liked and to get jobs and to get opportunities and to keep working. And so trust nothing an actor says. They are professional liars. That is literally what they do. And it's look, nobody loves movies more than me. I love falling into the lie, but it is a lot, these are fabrications. And so just they're propped up by people that are incredibly powerful. Their mouths are being moved by somebody else's hand up their ass. And that's just how I've learned to accept it. It's like I can love a performance you give, but that doesn't mean you know anything about how I live. You know, you're an incredibly wealthy person because you've been successful. Good for you, but like the things you advocate for are not for me. They're somebody else is moving your mouth.
Yeah. Hey, Russ is sold first. We've got people. Yeah. Yeah. Just Google what happened with Russ. It's probably the best evidence you can use against diverse hiring. So, yeah, Cassie, what are kind of your thoughts on Blanchett here? Just kind of, like I said, just the general direction we're going in Hollywood at the moment.
No, do not give more women jobs. In my anecdotal evidence, most women I encounter are absolutely shit at their jobs. So they really should go back to, being in the home and getting that right first, okay? Because most y'all just fucking suck, not for nothing. If you're given if you're filling a diversity quota, you definitely probably fucking suck at your job, not for nothing. You couldn't even earn it yourself, based upon your own merits. And I demand that women either earn your spot or get the fuck out. Stop. The main thing with society is like, and this really F's women over, is that like now women are being like pushed to fill the female and the male role, and they think that, oh, like because this is normalized in society that this is like I have to do this. Meanwhile, it's like, well, you need to spend like 10 to 15 years in college, and manage to find a mate for life, and then manage to have kids before your ovaries rot, all within this small time period. And it's like a lot of this is just not sustainable. Oh, and also find like a career, not a regular job, but a whole career, and manage to do all this stuff, raise
And
kids,
then you can have kids when you're in your 50s, and menopause is literally like choking you out.
Yeah, and then wonder why your kid has Asperger's.
Yeah, but this is what they've been pushing within the industry, because they have influence. They've actually influenced people to believe that this is the way to go. So I don't know what to say here.
I'll jump in.
Go ahead.
Hold on. One thing I also must say, if you're a man that's also pretending to be a woman, you fucking suck too, not for nothing. You suck just as much as the gender you're trying to fucking be, and you really just need to stop.
Yeah.
You may continue.
Oh, well, you're always a hard act to follow. So, I was gonna say this is probably not actually a good way to go about diversifying the industry. Obviously, Cate Blanchett can do what she wants, and we all need something to laugh at. I mean, how many times have we laughed at Kathleen Kennedy destroying a franchise at this point, right?
After cried.
You cried, yeah.
I joke, but this woman seriously has to have like some Polaroids in a safe somewhere. There's no other explanation to why she still has a job at this point.
Well, I mean, and just think of all the other great women writers out there today, with Jennifer Selke and Phoebe Waller-Bridge, and the lady who did Blood Origins for Witcher, who doesn't even really like Henry Cavill's take on The Witcher, even though he actually read the book and she didn't. And yes, it's just so wonderful to think these are supposed to be my heroes. I will say though, like if she wanted to change, like, so when she talks, the thing that stood out in your article was the generational thing, because one of the problems that is a problem in Hollywood that I know directly is that they're having a hard time replacing the people who are the experts. Like if you look at like the lifespan of special effects, they either really tend to die young, or when they retire, they only last a few more years because they've been sucked dry by the industry. And so one of the harder things is getting people to replace them at that level of competency, and not even just competency, but this is like a big art project. Like there are a lot of little pieces that have to be choreographed and put in motion all at the same time to make it work. And you're dealing with, not just mechanical and technical things like Rob was saying, but you're talking about egos, you're talking about script changes, you're talking about direction, you're talking about balancing all the, just the many, many moving pieces.
Yeah.
This is not a recipe for this is a recipe for diversification, but still failure. If they really wanted to diversify the industry, what they would try to do is open up apprenticeships and hire more people to be like assistants and training and getting some kind of, like I said, apprenticeship credit for this, because that is an area that is struggling in Hollywood, is the special effects and the more technical things. You can have, and if you have all this money, why not hire both a woman and a person of color to go around and study these people that are doing a really good job with special effects? I know just from personal anecdotes too, because I live near Hollywood in Atlanta, is that a lot of the times, like the crew members are almost a full team. It's like when you hire one, you tend to hire on who they pick because they've worked with them before. It is like you apply for a job every time that you change a job. And that's how you kind of get in. Somebody, you worked with someone, you have a good rapport with somebody. And it is almost like the joke about getting the pronouns in the Twitter bio, like will get you like shifted over for a job. Nobody wants to hire a bunch of Karens. So,
well, Orange, I want to hop this one over to you, and then Mongo, you can jump into, because we got another story that's kind of in the same line about people complaining about diversity here. But what do you think about Blanchett's comments here?
Well, one, before don't bring up the thing. Well, okay, yeah, you can.
Okay, well, I hadn't brought it up yet, so.
Well, it's brought up now, or not. Anyway, we'll get to it in a second. But first off, to Blanchett, I'd sue your ass for discrimination if I ever went in for that thing, first off, because you're proving that you're not hiring on merit. You're hiring strictly on discriminatory practice. There are laws that do not allow that kind of business practice. So yes, I would sue you if I didn't get the job. And I would have grounds to do so. Secondly, this Rooney Rule itself is a blatant violation of that law. So anybody who doesn't get the job strictly because of their merits could also sue. So the Rooney Rule should actually be gotten rid of. But when it comes to identity politics, I have always said this, and I will stand by it. The basis of identity politics today, the forced diversity and all that stuff, where you are taking a person, putting them on a pedestal, telling people to throw money at them, not because of their skill or their acting, but because of their labels, their identity, their skin color, their race, gender, sexuality. That is the same thing that all the slavers and all the shit way back when slavery was a thing, and I'm not just talking about the U.S. slavery, I'm talking about ancient slavery, when slave trade was more common and way out there. That's the same thing that they did in slave auctions. And it is the biggest form of regression in society when you are saying, pay for this person because they're black or Hispanic or they're a lesbian or they're gay or whatever.
Well, don't forget, you have people unironically arguing for the return of segregation under the guise that this time it's going to be a good thing. Yeah. So
it's like, have you guys learned nothing of what Martin Luther King Jr., somebody whose doctrines I actually was raised on, judging by people not by the color of their skin, but by their content of their character. When I was in high school or even grade school, and I saw somebody who was black, because we had like 2 or 3 different families in my hometown. We were predominantly white, but we had a few black people there. We didn't treat them any different because they were black. We just treated them like they were people. That was it. There was nothing different about them.
But we don't live in that world anymore. We live in the world where we're
unfortunate. The 80s and the 90s were the pinnacle of society when it comes to racial relations, where nowadays we're literally regressing back to the crap that was going on in the 50s and 60s and whatnot.
I would probably
really
say
evil.
more 80s than 90s because 90s we did have the LA riots.
LA riots,
right?
Yeah.
And then the OJ
Right.
thing didn't help matters either. So yeah, probably more 80s than 90s.
It was good though. I agree.
It
Mostly
was.
it was good.
But when it comes to the whole political scaling thing, now you can bring up this thing here.
Yeah, I got it.
This is actually the correct way to measure politics. The right or far right is no government. Far left is total government. Constitutional moderates and conservatives are actually in the middle. So people have forgotten history to the point where everybody's saying right wing this, left wing that. They continuously forget that whenever they say far right, that's literally talking about anarchy.
Yeah.
And
Well,
left wing, they love to call the far right Nazis. They're actually the freaking Nazis.
Well, I've looked at it more, especially over the last couple of years. It's like it's really not even that much more in the political lens anymore. It's like we're basically in between lawlessness and order. And I think those are the two real sides that we're looking at in this story here. But Mongo, I'm going to let you go in, then we're going to jump over to the other story we got here.
All right, so this is in California, right? This what Cate Blanchett is trying to do.
Yeah.
Okay, so the way I see it, I look at it from the way that Michael was talking about, and look at it from the perspective of socialism. And when you have, I mean, she's just one person who's coming out and talking about it, but there's 100 pigs at that trough. You know, there's going to be a bunch of copycats trying to do the same thing. Eventually, you're going to run out of other people's money. It's not going to last forever that people are just going to be able to go to the government. And since you're in California, if you're giving tax breaks to favorable political positions like forced diversity, you're not taking care of your housing, you're not taking care of your water problems, you're not taking care of all the other things that's going on in the state. So it will collapse sooner rather than later. But in terms of the entire concept, I don't really care. We're right in the concept of people should be getting sued for this stuff, and they should have been suing. This stuff would have been nipped in the bud if men and white people would have filed lawsuits years ago. And I know that some of them tried. They tried to stop the whole affirmative action concept, because all this stuff stems from the affirmative action stuff anyway. And I know a lot of them have chipped away at it a little bit here and there, and the Supreme Court just will not overturn it. They might actually overturn it now, but over the years, they had a hell of a time trying to overturn because everybody saw this coming. When affirmative action was passed, they were saying this is going to lead to quota systems. Everybody knew that. Again, this is one of those situations where it was not a slippery slope fallacy. Everybody saw this coming. Everybody knew that it was a Campbell's nose situation where as soon as you start saying you must do this, everybody's looking like, okay, how far do we have to go with this? And now we just keep increasing more and more and more. But it's not sustainable.
This is like the whole idea of like the slippery slope. It's like, okay, first you have a giant rock that's on a mountain, right? And it's about to tilt over. Then someone pushes that rock. Then the rock is literally going down the hill and there's people pointing, hey, look, a rock's coming. And then people don't believe that the rock's coming. And then when the rock smashes through your house, everyone's like, oh yeah, the rock, I guess people are right when they were saying that the rock was coming in the first place. It's like, and now we're at the house smashing phase.
Well, I mean, we're at the place too where it's like, it's good that this rock smashed your house.
Yeah, people will say that. Oh no, this is actually a good thing. I think just quick little sidebar before we jump over to another story. There was this woman on Twitter. I'm not sure anyone saw this video. She was arguing with some guy. She was trying to argue that, oh, we're not trying to sterilize kids by gender reassignment surgery. Literally 3 seconds later, once the guy proved that yes, you are. It's like, okay, so what? We're sterilizing them, and what's the big deal? Why do you care? It's like, well, 5 seconds ago you just said it wasn't happening. So now that you accepted it's happening, is why you care. So it's like, yeah, these people will go with anything.
It's all about power. It's not about principle. It's all about power. It's not about principle.
And that's the perfect segue, because here's another problem. This is what this really stems down to. We have Viola Davis here complaining that there isn't enough roles out there for old black women. So I wanted to bring this up here for a second, because here's her saying that, Hollywood is a vast desert for black women over 50. And you're going to start seeing the themes here as we talk about this story. But I'm just going to go down here. I know this is Huffington Post because this is where I found the story at. But also at Cannes, so all of this crap is coming out of France right now. Viola Davis said in an interview that when it comes to black women who are over 50, then that when the lack of interesting roles is problematic. So there's not enough interesting roles for black women who are over the age of 50. It says that's a vast desert, the EGOT winner said, who most recently portrayed Michael Jordan's mother in the film Air. We saw that. It was all right. The women are no longer begging for a seat at the table. They're creating their own. So this goes back to what Cate Blanchett said, but I mean, she goes from the black perspective. Taraji P. Henson, Tavia Spencer, Kerry Washington, Issa Rae. I wouldn't even put her on there, but whatever. Halle Berry, Keke Palmer, Spencer's favorite. We can go on and on. He says they're empowering themselves by understanding that they're the change that they want to see. So the argument, we'll finish this start right here, saying that the dearth of interesting roles for black women over 50 firsthand. I play a lot of mom, she told people. It's like, shocker. I mean, you are over 50. It says, everyone wants me to play their mom. I have people who hug me in the street who call me mom. This is Davis continuing here. She's talking about the role. I think that the enticement came where I wasn't your normal mom role. He said, I turned it down on its head because she was the one who negotiated the multi-million-dollar deal we all know today. That intrigued me. I like surprises. So she's talking about why she chose to be a mother in the film Air, which we've done that before. But here's the problem here. This is what it really comes down to of all of these stories, is that it really just comes down to women complaining that they're not getting the roles that they desire anymore because maybe time has passed them by, maybe ability has passed them by, whatever the case may be. And they think, oh, well, I can't get, the big Marvel roles, or I can't get, the top tier roles that I acquire. It's like when the dude from Stuber, whatever his name was complaining about he can't play a villain anymore because he's Indian and Hollywood doesn't want to portray any brown people as villains anymore. So literally these people are complaining about the fact they're not getting the role that they want, and they're lobbying not only the industry, but as you see now the pipeline with the government, that hey, you guys need to make changes so I can get the roles that I want now. So what we're going to do is that we're going to uproot the entire system so that I can play something that's more than just playing the black mom in my 50s. It's like, look, is there that many roles in Hollywood that require a black woman in her 50s? I mean, honestly, if we look at the context of films that are usually presented by their premise, sure, there's going to be a few every now and then, but guess what? Maybe that's proportionate to the actual population of black mothers there are out there. That people try to present this all this underrepresentation. Maybe it's a perfect representation. You ever think about that? I want to go ahead and bring Rick in. I just want to acknowledge Rick. I don't want him to say anything because I'm going to Mike first. What do you think of Viola Davis complaining about not enough roles for old black women? Can you hear me?
I thought you said you were going to someone else first.
Yeah, I said I was going to Mike first.
Oh,
Exactly.
my bad.
Yeah,
I didn't say anything.
No, I told Rick not to say anything, and then I went to you. So I went over here.
I was sitting there, I was like, oh, this is Rick guy. And I'm like, what is he doing drinking? What is this? My bad. My bad.
He's the guy we were mocking in the intro earlier, but we'll talk about that later.
So again, I think you just hit the nail on the head. And it's what I was saying before. Like, it's not a coincidence. Like, actions speak louder than words. What a coincidence. She's an older black woman. What is she advocating? Older black women. Which I want to bring it back to what the gentleman above me was saying about identity politics. And I used to say the same. I used to say, like, hey, I wish I didn't see color, all that stuff. But I think we're living in a different time. And again, this is where you walk that fine line. You look at the 1965 Immigration Act, all that stuff. Like, we're a very diverse empire. And I think this is just the nation of empires. It's the same thing in Russia or whatever, or even just any diversity. If you look at Singapore, it leads to fascism because it's the only way to get all these diverse groups. Because, and I'm going to throw out some cliches or whatever, but what is it? Diversity plus proximity equals conflict. And like, all of human history has shown this. And I think the world you're talking about, and part of my childhood was like that a little bit, where you just go, oh yeah, it's like I have a Mexican friend, a Vietnamese friend. It doesn't really matter. You're not thinking about it because we all kind of have the same culture, but it's because they were a small minority. But because immigration is just so insane, now they develop parallel societies like we see in England, where there's like Muslim communities where they have like Sharia law and they go around like policing women who don't wear hijabs, like native British white women, you know. And I just think this is human nature. I don't blame these people. I think they're kind of pawns in the, you know, economic system. But people, for you to sue would be, or by my definition, would be white identity politics. And this is where we get into that murky territory. And I think why a lot of people haven't spoken up, and now people are starting to, Scott Adams and stuff, is that for you to make a lawsuit, you have to do what Tucker Carlson said. He said, that's evil. And that, you know, you're a Nazi. It's like, no, we have to, that's just human nature. We're tribal. And I think like the boomer generation, because it was all white people, that wasn't even a concept. There was, you know, you could have just like, okay, Democrat, Republican, that kind of thing. But now it's like, okay, my group wants A, B, and C. And it's, again, it's murky territory, but I'm sorry, like I'm pro-white. I think that's a thing. But let me just say this real quick, that I think it's LARPy to go into like, oh, ethno state and all that stuff. I think that's just Fantasyland stuff. I've traveled a lot. Like I was in Colombia last year, and they have a thing where it's like they have basically 5 different, it's not favelas, but it's like different tier systems. And it's basically, it's soft segregation. So it's not legal segregation. It's not apartheid, but there is like a pigmentocracy. And the thing that Anthony Bourdain said, he said, you know, he was on some show and people have clipped it, where he says the only way to get rid of all this like this tension is if we all just mix and just have a bunch of babies. Well, that doesn't happen. Look at anywhere in South America. All it does is just, it makes a bigger gradient. So instead of black and white, you have, you know, like mix. And you know, if you listen to rappers and stuff, they all like the light skin, red bone, yellow bone, whatever. That same thing happens. And so that same pigmentocracy happens in the different like sections. And one of the ways that they have soft segregation is that they subsidize it. So if you live in the ghetto, they'll subsidize your like rent for the lighting and electricity. So you're like, oh, cool, I'll stay there. But there's more crime. It's like a favela, you know? And I think that's the future of America. I think that's more realistic. And I want to live in a society which and this is where I'll piss off the far right people, is I'm okay with Vietnamese and black. Like, I just want a normal country. There's no reason to LARP and get into like ethno-state autism. Just what does Japan do? I just want a country with a homogenous group where you don't have to get into this identity politics stuff. And yeah, you have civil rights and whatever, and you treat people equal, but like you still have like a cohesive nation. And the last thing I'll say, and I'll shut up, is I disagree with the whole thing about government. And I know it's flawed, but the political compass, you know how it's like the 4 quadrants. A lot of people have said it's flawed. I get it. Left and right, that's kind of a flawed thing too. But by and large, I think that still fits. And an example of where I think the limited government doesn't fit with like left versus right is the bottom left quadrant of the people. You know, you've seen all the memes where it's like they just want insane transgender, whatever. Like they just have no morality. And I think Paul Gottfried said it. He's like Jewish guy who's like, they say he's part of the alt-right. I don't know, he's Jewish, so it doesn't really make sense. But he said he's anti-egalitarian, and that's what unites the right. I think we kind of accept it, and that's where the whole red pill thing is. We all disagree on, where on the red pill path you think, is genetic or whatever, but we all kind of agree, okay, women and men have biological differences. There's certain differences that we accept. And I think that makes more sense, because there are big government people on the right side of the spectrum, and there's limited government, Putin people. Is my connection good? I keep seeing the spiral. I hope all that went through.
Up until like that last word you just said, you were good for that part. So, but we got the gist of it there. Yeah, look, my problem here is this, and where we started with this like years ago, where there's always been racial tension for like years. Like that's kind of been like the history of our country going back to like decades. But we've always had quarrels where it's like okay, we're not as hostile towards each other. We even got to get along. And then all of a sudden we're at each other's throats. So we've been going through this waves over and over again. Now I think we're in a spot where racial tension, ever since arguably you could say Ferguson was kind of like the jump off point, where it's really started to teeter towards like one side to another. So here you have people, and you hear this all the time on Twitter and social media, mainstream people talking this. President of the United States went to a historical black college last week and said that white supremacy is the number one threat like in America today, right? And the problem is that now people are starting to believe it. So now people are kind of like under essentially living life under this guise that, okay, well, my enemy is white people, because that's what I've been told, that's what I've been seeing, and then we've been pushing this idea like in the mainstream now. So when you push that idea, when you have people believe that, and then you make the excuse that, oh, well, I can't do this because racism is privilege and power, and I don't have any privilege or power, so I can't be racist. But then when you push that, when you attack one side of the group as viciously as you are, then when you start getting pushback, it's like, am I supposed to be mad at the pushback, or am I supposed to be mad at the one you're the one that's causing the division like in the first place, right? Because I can't sit here and fault people who may feel justed because it's like, hey, I'm white and now they've made me public enemy. Like number one, it's like, is it wrong for someone to feel slighted in that sense when you're literally breeding a culture of division? Now, times that we grew up in, there wasn't this much division. We talked about 9/11 kind of, no, ironically, before we started the show here, but that was honestly the last time in this country where we were actually somewhat universally united, where we actually had like a common enemy as Americans. We were like, you know what, we're gonna fly red, white, and blue, and then we're gonna destroy all of our enemies. Now, did that union last very long? Not too much. It only lasted a couple years for that thing whole went south. But ever since then, we just become more and more divided as a society. And this is the end result when everything becomes about, oh, well, I look around, there's just not enough women around here. Why is everything so flooded with men? Or I'm looking around, I don't see enough black people around here. It's like when you cause that kind of division, you're going to get pushback from it. And then when you do, it's like, who am I supposed to blame? Am I supposed to blame the other guy for getting upset that you're pointing the finger at him? Or should I get mad at you for pointing the finger in the first place? Like, you reap what you sow, and now we're starting to see what exactly is being sown here in our society right now. This is where we're at.
I'll say this. Look, I do my best to not get political. I mean, I'm basically a political independent.
Yeah.
I hate the Democratic Party right now, and I know the Republican Party, fucks up too. They're just not the ones in power right now. So yeah. I'm kind of in the middle on that. Look, Viola Davis had I'm sorry, Viola Davis's own starring role in Suicide Squad, guaranteed the limit on the roles that are going to be available. So Viola Davis is somebody that really did great in the prestige sort of Oscar movie category year after year after year. And it's, they're not making as many of those movies as they used to. And because of that, she's not going to have as many opportunities. She's not going to, as good of an actress as she is, she's not going to be up for a lot of leading lady roles going forward. She's still going to find opportunities, 2-3 times a year. But, what she's really complaining about is the lack of, good scripts out there, which frankly, that's always a complaint in Hollywood. And like I said, actors are stupid with the last topic we did. Don't listen to these people. They have somebody else's hand up their backside. So just,
Yeah, it's called the CIA.
Yeah, that too, so I just... Yeah, and that's, I kind of agree. I mean, I'm certainly not an ethno-statist. But yeah, I think this is an overpaid actress who is kind of sad that she doesn't get the same amount of work anymore.
Yeah.
I mean, if you really want, if I may, for just 1 second, if she really wants that one great role, why don't they just fucking make a movie about Rosa Parks? She's old enough to play her. So she should just, it's like, can we make a movie about Rosa Parks so I can have a good role, please?
No, because Rosa Parks was a light-skinned black woman, damn it.
Well, they've done a couple of, I think they've done a couple of TV movies. And I think Angela Bassett played Rosa Parks.
Well, I mean, Viola Davis can play Rosa Parks if we're having black women play the French queen of the
I know, right?
like in Netflix. So,
well, you know...
Zendaya.
Well,
but knowing, but in all honesty, knowing Viola Davis's luck, they'll probably give the role to Alfred Woodard.
Well, I'll just say, as the newest member of the master race, since Mexicans are now white supremacists.
There you go. You joined the ranks of Cubans too, by the way, because Cubans were white supremacists 2 years ago when they voted for DeSantis. So
yeah.
All the Indians were white supremacists before that too.
Actually, just quick before I let Rick go back, there was a story today about a guy who apparently hit a U-Haul near the White House, and he had like a Nazi flag, and it turns out the guy was like literally an Arab. Like, he had like, I think it's like, it was like Saeed Zalou or something like that. So apparently the Nazis are becoming more diverse than their opposition now. So everyone can just join
It's wild. It's wild.
Wow.
Well, I would just offer to Viola Davis first. She was the Woman King. I mean, that was a massive hit. It was one of the greatest roles in film history. And then you also, that was a terrible Doctor Who episode. And then there was also Danielle Deadwyler, who gave the greatest performance in the history of all cinema as Mamie Till Mobley. I would just tell Viola Davis, if you want old lady parts, then why don't you just have an all black version of the book club, the satanic thing that I had to watch,
Oh,
or
book
eight,
club with
yeah,
Jane
yeah,
Fonda.
yeah, or 80 for Brady. I mean, she could produce it, and she
We
could
need a
gather
black
older.
only reboot of the Golden Girls.
Yeah,
We had
they're
that.
supposed to be doing
Guys,
that.
you
We
do
had
realize
that.
they're literally redoing the Color Purple. Like, there's already been shots coming out
Yeah,
this December.
and it's a musical,
Yeah.
by the way.
It's a
Just be-
musical.
It's a musical. It's
That's
based
awful.
on a musical
Yeah.
that was on Broadway. There was a black Golden Girls. That was a TV special where they had white tech. Yeah, well, kind of because anyway. So if she could produce, if she's that upset about there not being enough roles for older black ladies, or she could produce and do an old lady movie that was like the book club or 80 for Brady or something like that. Nothing prevents that, and I mean nothing says that these four old ladies had in book club had to be all white, so she's able to do that. But I would just say, considering how African American women have really come past those old Hollywood film roles as the mammy and the servant, and now they're playing literal scientists and geniuses and hidden figures, which was one of my favorite films of the past few years.
Why?
There's why
Why?
I thought it was an interesting story, well acted, well told. I think Taraji P Henson should have been
I'm pretty
should have
sure I
won.
gave that movie like a 2
Yeah.
out of 5 when I watched
I
it
would
years
have,
ago.
yeah, I would have given her the Oscar over Emma Stone's cutesy song and dance shtick in
Oh God, here
La
we
La
go.
Land. But look, she could produce these movies. What is preventing her from producing movies where she can star or promote older African American actresses? These
White
are the same.
supremacy.
Um,
That's what's stopping
that,
her.
that's an absurdity. You look at people like Angela Bassett. I mean, people who were upset that she didn't win supporting actress for that. Have I not given everything? I mean, she would have won for an Oscar clip. And Viola Davis, go into producing. You're perfectly capable of producing a film if you think that you want that. You could have hit films with black female ensembles. You had that, was it Girls Trip? You had earlier, was it Waiting to Exhale? The possibilities are there, but you need to take them. You need to make your possibilities versus waiting. It's so strange that Viola Davis, of all people, is saying, I need to wait for these roles to come along. You can make them. You're the one that keeps saying that you need to be trailblazers that need to push. I would advocate for Viola Davis to push. Hopefully, something better than that whitewashing of history with the Woman King, which was lying about history.
And by the way, just real quick, Viola Davis, same woman who had last year said that if you didn't go see The Woman King, which completely rewrites the African slave trade to be heroes rather than complete villains, said that if you didn't go support that movie, then you were supporting the idea that black women can't lead major movies, and then that movie flopped. So,
And then Wakanda Forever came out.
yeah. Mongo, what do you think about this story here?
It's interesting because when I listen to these people, we put it in the box of identity politics, but really they're talking about themselves. It's not really about black women. There's plenty of black women who never been in movies who would love to play somebody's mama in a movie. It's about Viola Davis, who looks at Denzel Washington or Sylvester Stallone or Arnold Schwarzenegger still doing what they do at 70 or 80 years old, and she's saying, why not me? That's the problem.
Yeah.
The problem is she doesn't get the roles that she wants. They have nothing to do with the rest of the black women, most of whom will never reach the heights of Viola Davis. She is just comparing herself to other people, and she's jealous. And that's really what it boils down to. That's why she'll never actually write her own scripts and put forth the effort. Look, black men, when they were doing the blaxploitation movies in the 60s, and that started to dry up, those guys would finance their own movies in the 60s. They would go to Europe, shoot the movie themselves, and even if they lost money, they gambled on themselves. Now you have all of this diversity programs that favors people like Viola Davis, and she's still complaining. because it's about something she's got going on the inside. It's about her on the inside. It's not about what other people are doing. She's just a worthless piece of shit, and it's sad that because she is a talented lady. But when you have a history of people going back again 40 fucking years of funding their own movies, and you are a multimillionaire who is entrenched in Hollywood, and you still sit around and complain that you can't get the roles that you want. It's like Sylvester Stallone wrote Rocky for himself and didn't let nobody else play it. You want to make the movie, you got to put me in it. I mean, the blueprint is right there, and she's already in the. So it's like she clearly is just talking about herself. She's not talking about black women.
By the way, I just want to give a quick
Blanchett can
little.
hire her.
Just want to give a quick little plug here on Friday night on Twitch and Rumble. We will be watching the old school Dolomite movie here on the show, so you can join us for that one on Friday
Well,
night.
in regards to just like, people, privileged Hollywood elites bitching and whining, no one cares about what you have to say anymore. I want you to fucking struggle. Please struggle. So you get at least a tiny ounce of what it's like to be a regular person, especially now with gas prices having been shit for a while and spending $200 at the store and walking out with 2 fucking bags of groceries. I want to watch you upset. I want to watch you bitch and whine and get none of what you want. So continue to complain. I absolutely am just done with these fucking whiny baby losers. I don't give a fuck about your problems when our problems really fucking suck. So please, struggle some more.
They
Cassie,
already.
I think the word that Cassie wanted to say, I want to watch you burn. Let's be honest. Be honest with yourself, Cassie. That's what you wanted to say.
It's good to know that inflation and it's white supremacy that's a problem. So I propose that Biden steps down and we'll get Kamala Harris, and she'll fix everything.
I'm gonna tell you that.
And then Viola
not even the Democrats
role
want
to
that.
play.
Not even the Democrats want Kamala Harris. That's how insufferable she is. But
I don't know
That's
why.
right.
She's going to be the next president after Biden.
But he
First of
basically has 6 months left in his fucking presidency before he starts running for 2024. You know what I mean? Like how they always cheapen out on their last year in office. So,
Yeah, it's going to be
He's been
Harris.
cheaping out his entire freaking run.
sure.
It's going to be
There's
Harris,
half a brain in there.
and then it's going to be Buttigieg,
That's
and
being
then it's going to be AOC.
generous.
All right. So we're going to have the first black woman president, and then we're going to have the first gay president, and then we're going to have the first whatever AOC is, Puerto Rican. We're going to have her. So it's going to be that way for the next 16
Can you
years.
imagine AOC being the Antichrist? That would be a twist I don't think anyone saw coming. Right?
Is Kamala where's Kamala's parents from? What wasn't one from?
She's
Jamaica,
she's
India,
Jamaican.
and America. So.
Yeah, Jamaican,
Jamaican.
and African American.
She is whatever
in
is
India.
convenient that
Yes.
day. That's where her
Yes,
parents are
she's
from,
Jamaican.
so.
She's Jamaican and Indian.
But let's go ahead and give final thoughts on this one before we move over to our next story here. Anyone have any final thoughts? You can go ahead.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let me. Sorry, real quick.
Go ahead.
Yeah, one, they're already suffering. Like you see A-list or once A-list actors like Channing Tatum dancing with the moo cow thing. I've seen commercials. I'm like, what the hell are these people doing? Like A-list actors are having to stoop low. But I wanted to take the opportunity to shield my site so we don't just obsess about race. We're also sick of reboots. So now we're working on it. We're fine-tuning it. But like you can just filter out all reboots because, dude, we're sick of it. I think that's why they can get away with this. A lot of this stuff is not just government programs. It's because they do the nostalgia bait. And I was guilty of it, dude. I paid money to see the new Dead Alive movie. I was happily surprised. But it's a brand you recognize. You go, I'll give it a shot. And then you're like, it's like this, mediocre feeling. So I don't know. I say pirate it. But yeah.
I would just disagree on the Channing Tatum. As an actor, he can't act. He's able to take his clothes off rhythmically. I will give him that. He's able to take his clothes off in a very coordinated manner. But apart from that, he can't act.
How do you think he got the job in the first place?
There you go. Yeah.
I only saw one movie that I thought Channing Tatum was good in, and that was Haywire with Gina Carano.
I let my son watch
that's
G.I. Joe with
that's a
him,
big
so I
if
can't
for me,
complain.
It takes guts to throw hot coffee in Gina Carano's face and know that you're about to get an ass whooping.
I forgot he was even in that movie.
Yeah, it wasn't a great film. That's all I have to say there. But yeah, so that was kind of in the warm up period. Now we're going to get into the real stuff. We're going to push the limits of YouTube with this next story because this is one that broke over the weekend, and there's been a lot of debate from a lot of people. This is part of the reason why I brought Mongo in. TW is supposed to be here, but of course he's fashionably late on Color People time. So we're going to go ahead and start.
Yo, son.
So let's talk about this story. So I'm gonna show you how all this unfolded here. We all know Roman Reigns. The wrestling fans here know that Roman Reigns has been the WWE champion on that show for almost 1,000 days now. I think he's coming up on 1,000 days within the next couple of weeks. So he's essentially been the champion for 3 straight years. So if you like pro wrestling, if you like Roman Reigns, that's all you've been getting. So in order to keep this whole thing fresh, they've been having a lot of like T-shirts and stuff like that, a lot of merch because he's a top merch seller. So they figure out, okay, what new idea can we possibly throw out there that we haven't gotten before? Now, this is apparently one of the latest T-shirts that they were deciding to push here on the WWE. I'm not sure exactly how clear this comes off on your end. I'll try to see if I can zoom in just a little bit here.
God.
So this is Roman Reigns, and if you see the picture here, he is a picturized as a goat, and it says, "Life's not fair and still," which refers to him still being the champion. Now, a lot of people saw this image, and red flags started flashing immediately for some people, because when they looked at this, it's like, that looks very similar to something that I've noticed before. And then it was like, oh yeah, it looks like the Baphomet statue, which you see right here. Even to the point where he's literally doing the as above, so below, that the whole Baphomet and Satanism is based off of. So a lot of people put 2 and 2 together, and it's like, this is extremely suspect. So this person here, Jacob Barton, said Roman Reigns' new shirt looks awfully similar, and this is the post that he put on right here. So he got attacked for this. Surprisingly, people actually attacked him. Now you think, why would they attack him? What did he do? All he did was put the pictures side by side. Well, this is what I put down here on my post. It says, I had said this as someone who's been watching pro wrestling since like the early 90s. He says, there's noticeably been an increase of satanic references in WWE over the last 5 years. Not to mention they've been opening the door to Hollywood influences as well. So if you guys watched our WrestleMania stream from a couple months ago, I think they had like Logan Paul on the show, Little Uzi Vert, which is another rabbit hole we can go down on another level there. There was a couple of other people there. Snoop was there, so a few other questionable people who were there for the show. So they've opened the door for Hollywood influence. Well, when we made this post, when a few other people made the same post, we got attacked over not just pointing out that, yeah, there's been a lot of satanic references in WWE. Apparently, we were attacked by saying, you guys are crazy. It's just art, bro. Don't look at anything. You guys are overplaying your hand. You think that, everything's satanic, blah, 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 yada, yada. Now, I know for some of you guys who don't watch pro wrestling, you kind of have no context of this whatsoever. So I do have a second post here.
I don't even know what Roman Reigns looks like, so...
Well, I'll show you a picture of Roman Reigns when we get here in a second. But yeah, so, and I pointed out that, hey, people are replying to this post with great anger. Why? It's not because what I said or what the other posters said wasn't true. It's because others have noticed patterns over the last few years. And most people have been trained to pretend that there's nothing satanic even when they put it directly in your face. So this is some of the references that I pulled out just in the last couple of years. Here you have Alexa Bliss and the whole Bray Wyatt thing. And that's been kind of like this whole satanic monster thing that they've been doing the last couple of years. Bray's hurt now, so they're not really pushing it as much recently, but when he gets back, I'm pretty sure they'll do the same thing. Here's another picture, and this is the reason I tried to get TWRP on here, Work Rate Productions, but they couldn't make it because of scheduling, because they've been covering it just as long as I have. This is Rhea Ripley and Zelina Vega, 2 WWE superstars, pushing their own brand with Aleister Black called Black Mass. They're also another one called Black Craft, which is essentially what they call an atheism/Satanism clothing brand, which they have a lot of demonic images on t-shirts and stuff like that. This is what they've been promoting on their show the last couple of years. This is Seth Rollins also promoting the Black Craft, and you see the Baphomet images on there. And then you have this one here. This was Edge WrestleMania this year, coming out as the Demon, even though people say, well, that's a reference to the Brood. Well, I will say to you that the Brood started off as vampires, not demons, so you can say this is an escalation. So people who have watched pro wrestling over the last few years, you probably notice more references just the one that I've shown you here, but people are looking at this going, I wonder, is there something going on behind the scenes where they're starting to push a lot more satanic imagery than they were before? And then, of course, the backlash of that happened, and we've kind of been fighting over this the last few days. So, Mongo, I want to start this off with you. Then we can go to Cassie here. I'm not sure if you saw the post that happened this weekend or heard any topic regarding this shirt, but do you have any insight? Are people just, like myself, just being crazy by noticing these things, or do you think there's actually something more to it here?
I think it's a little of both. To be quite honest, wrestling in general has always had a little bit of Satanism going on with it. Going back to the 80s, Florida Championship Wrestling.
Oh, yeah.
The guy named Kevin Sullivan is the Taskmaster.
Oh, yeah.
He used to do the devil worshiping thing. Even so, there's been a lot of that. Of course, the Undertaker in the 90s, a lot of satanic stuff going on there. But even smaller guys like Damien Demento, who was supposed to be some kind of monstrous, demonist guy. He didn't last very long, but he was there for a little while. You had the voodoo thing with Papa Shango. You've had the Brood, our vampires. You've had this kind of stuff. So I kind of put the Roman Reigns shirt in the same category as the rest of that stuff, which is basically just silly wrestling shit. I don't look at it in terms of it's pushing an agenda. I look at it in terms of wrestling tries to be edgy, and it's their way of trying to stay relevant. Where I say sometimes WWE comes across like, a guy who got tattoos and nose rings when he's 19 and now he's 45, and that's kind of what the Edge thing was all about. Like the Brood might have been fun when he was in his early to mid 20s, but now the guy's almost 50. So you're like, what is this? It's like, are you really trying to push something, or is it basically you're nostalgia baiting yourself? Like back when this song I liked was cool, these images that I liked were cool, which was basically in the late 80s, and that stuff's not really. We, as the people who are watching, have grown up, and we're looking at it differently now than we would have when we were the kid. Because when you look at a lot of the other stuff that was taking place, a lot of stuff that I mentioned, you didn't pay that much attention to it. They didn't pay that much attention to the Ultimate Warrior having a curse put on him and green paint just rolling down of his face, or him vomiting up pea soup or whatever the hell it was. That stuff was in 1992, so they've been doing this stuff for a long time. Now, the overt sort of Satanism, some of that, like the devil worshiping with Alexa Bliss with the pentagrams and stuff like that, now that's a little bit more hardcore than they used to do. They used to not go that far, but now they're going that far. So I say it's a little of both. It's a little of, it is silly wrestling shit because WWE loves their animal mascots, and they've done the goat thing several times. Usually some type of goat head on a t-shirt, or some type of goat head on a jacket or something like that. And it's usually just supposed to be a cartoon version of the acronym greatest of all time. And I put it in that sort of bin where I don't really think too much about it. But it is something that when you look at the accumulation of it, it does come across as something that you might want to keep an eye on, for sure.
And I want to bring up something that Right Wing said here, because he also mentioned Becky Lynch's jacket. So this is where, like I said, you have to kind of like put a lot of pieces together here, because this is not just one shirt that they put out there and people started going crazy. This has been going on for a while. This was a couple of years ago when they did the exact same thing with Becky Lynch. She had this jacket here with the same image. I think this was right after like WrestleMania 35, so it was like maybe like 4 or 5 years ago. She wore this for essentially 1 week, and then they removed it instantly because people said the same thing about it then, and then they immediately backed off of it. I think she wore a completely different getup the next week. But as you said, this isn't something that just popped up as like one instance that you could kind of like pass over and be like, oh, okay, maybe they didn't know. I think what we're seeing here is that, and then we know for a fact that, like I said, TWRP has been covering this a lot. There's a lot of people in WWE right now who have overtly claimed to be members of witchcraft communities, people who have managed to be in certain, like I said, Blackcraft, whether it's Blackcraft, Black Mass, other things like that. Like I said, Rhea Ripley, Seth Rollins, Becky Lynch, Sonya Deville, The Rock's daughter, Simone, whatever her name is. So there's been like a number of people who have been involved with these communities over the last few years. So now people are like, if you notice on NXT, I think they have like a couple of girls there who are doing like some kind of like dark witch gimmick. It was like Isla Dawn or something like that. And I noticed it was like, aren't there already two girls like on the roster kind of doing like a dark witch gimmick or something like that? It's like, how many of you guys are going to do like the exact same gimmick? Like, we already have Judgment Day, we already have Rhea Ripley, we already have Edge, we already have Bray Wyatt, we already have what's going down in NXT. So you start to wonder, it's like, is it just coincidence that all of these guys are just completely uncreative, that they're just biting off of each other's gimmicks, or are they trying to tell you something here? I think if you go back to a story that we covered a few months ago with Balenciaga, that high brand fashion agency, where we found out, because somebody did some digging, that one of the photographers who were involved with Balenciaga was hiding references to child porn and child torture within a lot of their ad references, and they were kind of blatant. Like, they weren't just like, oh, somebody kind of mistake the reference here. Like, they put those things in there to be found, right? So we know for a fact, especially in like high fashion and stuff like that, that these people do try to insert these type of things into plain sight, and people see that, and then you also have the people who just like see it and they just won't believe it. So I don't know, like, I can't just like completely dismiss everything that's going on. It's like, oh, it's just all part of the show, there's no big thing going on here. It's like, is it at this point, can we keep turning a blind eye, or do we have to really start waking up to what's going on here? Cassie, you're the other wrestling fan here, at least you were at one point. I don't know if you still watch or anything, but I know Roman Reigns is your favorite wrestler in the entire world. So what's kind of your perspective on this whole thing?
Well, honestly speaking, I don't really know how to feel about this. It's one of those things where it's like, can like these depictions, be like, people just like saying, yo, what is this? Like, can it be a little bit over the top, people's reactions to this stuff? Yeah, but can it also, you can't like glance over the reality that seems to be a lot of these depictions that you guys are bringing forward as, examples of, Satanism.
Yeah.
So it's one of those things where I sit in the middle and I'm like, I don't really know what to think about this. It's definitely strange. I grew up at a time where, I don't know if goth is still like a super popular thing, but like goth kids in high school, emo kids, like I grew up during that time. And like I grew up around a bunch of fucking people that wanted to be like little edgelords, thinking that like, oh, like all this little demonic shit, and really were they, at least that I knew of them at the time, like serious about wanting to do bad shit. From what I gathered, no, they just wanted to seem like they were cool or whatever the fuck have you by doing something that was sort of, rejected by family or society. And I think that, wrestling in itself kind of has embellished in being rebellious and doing like the most ridiculous thing. But the problem is, like, I think a problem with wrestling now is that modern day society in itself has gotten pretty ridiculous. So for these wrestlers to stand out, it becomes one of those things where they probably have to take things a few steps further than what we've been used to over the past, 10, 15, 20 plus years that we've witnessed wrestlers, that they've had to be a little bit extra. And I guess maybe, going after this is one of those things. But yeah, it is weird. I have to also ask, like, are these characters that are taking on these, like, that are, wearing these depictions of Satanism, are they, bad characters? Because that, I mean, if they're heels, then I guess that kind of would be an accurate depiction. Now if they're face characters
Yeah.
and they have these depictions, that kind of is something that's sus in itself. But if you're a fucking Satanist and you wear all this fucking Satanist shit, and you're deemed as like the bad guy, I mean, I guess that goes hand in hand. I'm just pulling at straws with this one, but
Well, so here's a picture here this is from a few years ago. This isn't a recent picture, but like I said, this is Rhea Ripley, Zelina Vega, and the Rock's daughter Simone Johnson promoting privately. This wasn't part of like any kind of like storyline or anything like this. Like they were privately promoting this clothing brand called Black Mask. You can see here,
yeah,
they're all
but
wearing the shirts,
that's
and there's literally a Baphomet right behind them in the photo as well. So.
well, that's probably Aleister Black himself. I mean, Aleister Black, he's sort of like, I don't want to call him necessarily like goth, but he's always been into that like dark, fucking shit.
But I think he admitted in interviews that he's a Satanist too, though. Like he's actually come out and admitted it. And he has. I think one of the things with him is that he was actually banned from Saudi Arabia because he actually has like satanic tattoos, and they will not allow him into the kingdom of Saudi Arabia because of those tattoos. So, and I know you were saying that. Well, if this is all just part of like a storyline, but it's like when they do stuff like this, like none of this stuff is being portrayed on TV. So this isn't part of a story. And when this picture was taken, none of these people were bad guys on television. Like Zelina Vega doesn't do like this type of stuff as her character on television. I think Rhea Ripley was a babyface at this time. So it's like you can't really like pass it off as like, oh, maybe it's just part of like a storyline when they're not really portraying this on TV. And my take on it usually is it's like, okay, once it's a coincidence, maybe someone didn't know. There was a story years ago about how Alexa Bliss promoted the clothing company one time, and then she kind of moved away from it when she realized what it was about and kind of like distanced herself from it. So maybe she didn't know at the time. So I can say maybe she's not a part of it. She didn't know and she kind of moved away. But a lot of these other people aren't doing that. Mike, I know you're kind of. Oh, go ahead, Cassie. I'll switch over to Mike real quick.
I think that this is. If this is the case, if this is what they're promoting on their free time, like WWE should, take more of a stance, especially if these are supposed to be fucking face characters, but on their free time, they're fucking, advertising satanic clothing, especially when they're supposed to be the good guy characters in their storyline. Like, that's when WWE should step in and say, you can't promote that while you're holding the belt as a face character for our brand. Like, stuff like that. But I also do want to say, I mean, look, I'm not here to pass to make the rules. I'm avidly against that. At the end of the day, are you diddling underage individuals or not? If you're not and you practice this bullshit, I mean, and you're not breaking any laws, I mean, I think that you're an idiot at the end of the day. But at the end of the day, we also have priests that also do these things, and it's one of those things where
I could go on a rant on Catholics here, but John and the other John aren't here, so
I can't tell you what to do. Just don't be a piece of shit human being. Really, at the end of the day, is the best step.
See, Cassie, you should take credit for Quantumania now. So.
Yeah. So Mike, let me ask you a question. Are you going to start adding a category on your site for Satan worship, or is that something that you're looking forward to now?
Hey, you ask and you shall receive. We'll put it on there, man.
Yeah.
So I can't do justice to this. I would say if you haven't had Jay Dyer on in any of the previous streams, definitely contact him. This is like his forte. He's Orthodox Christian, and he's gone deep into like I don't want to say Illuminati because it's got a negative connotation, but whatever, like this weird stuff going on. I myself am not a Christian, but I'm pro-Christian, and part of what has made me try to become, find a stronger faith is how, as Cassie was saying, how like degenerate and insane society is, where it's like post-term abortion and stuff. I go, if there was a, devil and he was subverting society, wouldn't he make you think that he doesn't exist? And like all this stuff. Yeah. But the two things that I think it's somewhere in the middle. I think it depends. I didn't see if it was a one-up finger or if it's two. If it's two, then yeah, that's Satanist. I think it might be in the category of they're just false positive. I think he's just saying, hey, I'm the GOAT, like Mongo is saying. But I do want to say that I think most of Hollywood as a whole, I don't know much about wrestling specifically, but Hollywood as a whole, I think it's mainly useful idiots. But then I think there's also the part of it, Oh yeah, that's one finger. If I had to say, I would bet money that specifically that might not be. But you are noticing a pattern, and this is how they can hide in plain sight, is because they go, oh, what do you mean? It's like, I don't want to get you banned on YouTube, but spirit cooking and P-gate, right? If you guys remember that, right? And there's a lot of other stupid conspiracies. I'm not a QAnon guy or whatever, but spirit cooking is just factual. You can look at WikiLeaks. And you can look at
the photos are out there.
Exactly, yeah. And it's not denied. That's like just normie. Like you don't even have to go on like DuckDuckGo and all these, Yandex. You can just go on Google, Wikipedia, and it's like Marina Abramovich with Lady Gaga. And in the WikiLeaks, Hillary's like, oh, I need to give you a penance and stuff. Like, so whether they're LARPing or they actually believe it doesn't really matter, because at the end of the day, they are pushing these kinds of values. And I think there's useful idiots. And then there's another clip you can find of Mel Gibson when he was younger. He was like, I don't know, it was like early 90s. And he was talking about this weird feeling when he walked into Hollywood. And he said it's like when you go into a bar or like a ghost town and everyone looks at you and he's like, that can't be right. Like, you should get the clip. I won't do justice. But he basically was saying like, no, there's weird stuff going on. And there's been tons of whistleblowers. So there are for sure pedos, Satanists, whatever. And I think they like this blurry line, because then you can't really say like, are you just LARPing and being edgy? Or, you know what I mean? And so I don't know about the specific case, but like at the end of the day, does it matter? Do you want to support it? I say no. I think just play it safe and just call him a LARPer, or
Well, it's been.
I
just wanted to say real quick. It's been a long time since I kind of looked into this shit. Like I remember, this is when I first discovered YouTube. I was 19, so this is like 2008, 2009. I got really obsessed with this stuff. I haven't thought about it really. I mean, a little bit because some of the topics we talk about on this show, but I really haven't thought about any of this stuff since I was 19, and so kind of be hit with it 15 years later. It's very surreal. But I also think it's like possibly hiding in plain sight and possibly nothing. I've watched wrestling. I mean, I remember when Undertaker had his like satanic character arc thing, and I mean there are examples of it, throughout wrestling history and all that. But I have no idea. I think this stuff is interesting. But when people brought up QAnon around the Trump presidency and all that, like that's just old Illuminati conspiracy theories, So I was very familiar with it, but it's been a long time.
Yeah, I'll save this question for TW here, but it's just like, I mean, here's my problem. It's like I said earlier, it's like literally once is a coincidence, but when you start noticing a pattern, especially with the way our society is going, you can't just pass off everything as, oh no, it's just them LARPing, like having fun. Like at a certain time, and this is the problem. People who make those arguments aren't believers themselves, so they can't believe that there's this group out there that probably believes something that they themselves don't believe in. So it has to be some kind of a grift or some kind of like a joke in their mind, because that justifies it, right? Because if it's not a joke, if it actually is real, then that means that your beliefs, your system kind of have to be challenged in a way too. It's like, well, if these people out here are absolutely worshiping nefarious things, and that means that maybe I should change the way that I look at the world on a certain topic too. Go ahead, Mike.
I just want to clarify that I do believe a lot of these people, especially at the top, do believe this. My point was that I think there's it's a murky area where there's a lot of people who are just like, they're just trying to be edgy, or they're just like, oh, I'm in Hollywood. Yeah, sure, I'll wear it. And it's kind of like Dave Chappelle revealed about how every black actor has to wear a dress. And they're like, what is they notice a pattern, but I think a lot of them are useful idiots. Just like, the Antifa communists, whatever, like a lot of them are just saying what higher ups are saying. And then I think you get high enough into it, like Mel Gibson, and he goes, oh, that was real. My gut was right. So I think there are people who believe it, but I think there's a whole bunch of useful idiots who are just LARPing.
Yeah, I'm not sure if Mongo and I talked about this, or we had this on another conversation. We were talking about essentially that specific thing about why they're trying to get so many men to like wear dresses and like movies and stuff like that. And it's always played off as, oh, it's just comedy, it's no big deal or whatever. But I think it really is a test, right? Because if you actually read the Bible, there's a verse in there that says that women shouldn't wear men's clothes, men shouldn't wear women's clothes. So they like, well, if we can get this guy to wear a dress and take a comedy, then maybe he'll be part of our club. But if he backs off of it, it's like, no, I don't know if I want to do that. Then okay, he's not ready to be in our club, and we can just push him off to the side. Because I think you see a lot of these things in plain sight, and I don't know, I mean, people just see things and then they're just like, oh no, this can't possibly be real. It has to be some kind of it has to be some kind of explanation going on here. Maybe the answer is just very easy. Maybe we just don't want to accept it. But
Hollywood is a place that's full of people and attracts people who want to be used. They want to be used. They don't. And that thing about being a useful idiot, it's a little bit more than that. It's like people are willing to do a lot of fucked up shit just to have a chance at being famous,
Fame and
being
money.
in the right crowd, getting
Getting
into
in.
the right restaurants or clubs. It's very little what a lot of those people are willing to do just for a seat at the table.
TW, I'm not sure how much you've watching. I know you just joined us a little bit later here, but we initially started this whole thing about the Roman Reigns' T-shirt. About a lot of people were saying that it seems like he was they modeled that T-shirt off of the Boffman, and you go in there, and it's like a lot of superstars are into witchcraft now and are open Satanists. So is there more to this? You used to be a goth kid, so I mean maybe you know more about this than us here. So what's kind of your thoughts about this whole thing?
Yeah, I think with the Roman thing, I think that's probably a little bit a coincidence. They're just wanting to call him the GOAT and all that stuff. But it's definitely not a coincidence with all these people like Rhea Ripley, Aleister Black, Seth Rollins, Bray Wyatt, and all these other people participating in all this Satanism stuff. It's not a coincidence at all. It's like I think it's this whole secret, like, back room type of thing going on in the locker rooms and stuff like that. And it's noticeably happening with Triple H in charge. It's not something that was really happening back when Vince was in charge. I think now that Triple H is in charge, there's a lot more liberties being taken back there and possibly a lot more sketchy stuff going on than there was back there. Probably a lot having to do with this Blackcraft stuff, because every single one of those wrestlers that I mentioned is enrolled in that Blackcraft type of stuff.
Yeah. Like I said, we've noticed them too as well. But like I said, I mean, maybe I'm just at a different point in my life than some other people. But I look at this and it's like, look, remember, I always go back to this. I think C.S. Johnson, we talked about this before. Remember the whole thing with Bohemian Grove when we got where a bunch of our most powerful leaders in the entire world got caught worshiping an effigy of that may have been Baal, that may have been Moloch, and then we were basically told, oh, that's just a bunch of rich kids having fun. They were just out there goofing around and like, don't take that seriously, even though we caught it like on video, and then like years later everyone just moved on and accepted that explanation as real. So now we ask ourselves, well, if you actually, like I said, read the Old Testament, there was a big problem with people who worship false gods like Baal, like Moloch, and we're supposed to believe that for all of these years Christianity managed to stay intact, Judaism managed to stay intact, even Islam, even though that has my issues too, but we'll keep that for another time. But we're just supposed to believe that the people who worshiped all those false gods, those people just went away. Like they don't exist in society anymore, and they definitely don't have position of power in the modern times either. So yeah, just don't make anything big of it. That's all I have to say, right? So any final thoughts?
One of the weaknesses when it comes
Go Johnson first, then Mongo. Yeah.
Sorry, Mongo. One of the kind of like the downsides of being like more concerned about good, is that good doesn't change as much as evil has to. And I think it's very easy for this kind of thing to kind of morph just kind of around, and it's almost like Schrodinger's troll. If you think it's real, it's not real, and if you don't think it's real, it is. And but the when it comes to like the satanic sort of thing, and living in a post-truth kind of society where you have your truth and I have my truth, and postmodern role is that if truth is not the most important thing, then what is the most important thing? And it usually becomes power. So obviously this is wrestling, and it's kind of like a show of power, right? It's like, is this the fake stuff, or is that boxing? I forget.
Well, I mean, depends on but put it this way. Boxing is fake stuff with Vegas odds. That's essentially the difference between boxing and wrestling.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, I forget which one is fake.
That's basically what it is. All these sports are kind of becoming fake nowadays.
Yeah. How many times have I said on these streams, wrestling's fake? I've said it a million times already.
I still get it mixed up because it's all sports, and I don't do a whole lot of sports.
Fucking fake. Even baseball.
I will say my dad bought tickets to a Falcons game, so I will be going to a football game later this year. But still, like, so like in a post-truth society, like the thing that becomes important is power, and one of the kind of like the telltale signs is the echoing, the patterns that echo and kind of bounce around, and that's kind of what we're starting to see in this instance. It looks like so there is a lot more satanic imagery. There is a lot more like power kind of a lot of narcissism, frankly, because I mean, like, it's not the goal of Satan necessarily to get you to worship Satan. It's the goal is to get you to worship anything other than God. And the idea that, I mean, it's that easy is really disheartening, you know.
Mongo, I'll let you go, then we'll move on to our next topic.
Oh, okay. So I really didn't think about this until you mentioned it about whether they were in character or not. I wasn't thinking about that too much. But Aleister Black is a Satanist. You know, Malachi Black. He is a Satanist. He married to Selena Vega. So Selena Vega is married to a Satanist. So, and he owns that Black Mass t-shirt company. So they're kind of just promoting his brand as his friends. But at the same time, you do have more than just him. You do have the pentagrams with, you know, Bray Wyatt, and you have the popularity of those characters in terms of having that imagery and those characters being very popular. So that's definitely something to consider. Is no, they weren't in character. Yes, they were promoting a brand, but it was more like Aleister Black is the kind of guy who, you know, went on TikTok or something like that and was crying about Black Lives Matter. So they see him as being a very nice guy, and they don't see a problem with wearing his t-shirts because they like him. He's a nice guy, you know. So what? He's a little odd, you know, and that's the kind of way that they look at things. Is he's my friend. He just happens to be a Satanist. I'll wear this t-shirt. Now, in terms of like Seth Rollins, who I know is an atheist, I'm not so sure about Becky Lynch. So there are people who their on-screen character is very different from their off-screen character. So that needs to be taken into account. I really just kind of focus on the characters as they are on screen because that's what children are being, indoctrinated with. In terms of how Aleister Black chooses to live his life, I don't really care about that. But the images that they portray, especially to children, which is WWE's main audience, that's what I'm more concerned with. And since he's not there anymore, he's, you know, promoting Satanism to the AEW audience, who are a lot of mouth-breathing 40-year-olds. I'm cool with that.
Yeah.
Do your thing. You know, so that's definitely something that that I definitely feel like. Well, let me back up a little bit, because another thing that we talked about here is what comes to off-screen. A lot of these wrestlers are influenced by movies. Like a lot of them are influenced by like The Craft, like especially the female wrestlers.
Yeah.
Like you had Liv Morgan, who she wanted to be what Alexa Bliss was. She had actually, you wouldn't call it audition, but she had actually pitched that idea to Vince before it ended up being to Alexa Bliss, because she really does that stuff. Like she really is one of these Wiccans, and Isla Dawn is one of these Wiccans. So you do have some of them who really are Wiccans or witches or whatever, and they bring that onto the screen. But then you also have Roman Reigns, who is a Christian man, who, you know, ends up with a Baphomet t-shirt, you know, because some idiot in marketing wasn't thinking about that, you know. So I definitely think like this definitely needs to be something that
and I'll say this too, because if you guys follow pro wrestling, Stevie Richards was a pretty big character back in like the 90s, early 2000s. He kind of talked about this. It wasn't specifically about this situation, but kind of like in the same realm of, well, do the wrestlers really have any control, like the stuff that they wear, whatnot? And he said that at one point, I think it was during like the 2000s run, where he was basically being presented essentially like a prototype of like merchandise and stuff like that, and that he noticed that, you know, they were sneaking some subtle things that, you know, he didn't really think about at the time, and now he kind of look back on it. It's like, yeah, you know, I didn't really have any control over what my merchandise was going to look like. They were just kind of like presenting me something and give me like the okay and whatnot. But Stevie, who's obviously a Christian now, like, you know, he's found faith, you know, since his retirement, kind of looks back on that, and it's like, yeah, no, it's very easy for somebody else to sneak that type of stuff in there, because like it's not like the wrestlers themselves design like the t-shirts. They just like, here's your latest t-shirt, and you're like, yeah, okay, well, I guess I'm on it, so this is cool and whatnot. But they're just because, you know, the person behind the shirt may have some nefarious mean doesn't mean that the wrestler himself in those certain cases. Now I think Roman was raised in kind of like a Catholic school, if I'm not mistaken, and then he even like went as far as like to like kind of lambast like atheists who were like, you know, who basically try to shit on him for his like Christian faith. So I know he does have some kind of faith, so I'm not going to completely throw Roman under the bus for this specifically, but like I said, I think it has more to do with the culture in WWE at the moment overall, and some of the people who are into it. So.
Well, real quick, because I know you want to wrap up. I would just say first the fact that nobody looked at that shirt and questioned that it looked somewhat satanic, or at least could be open to interpretation, says kind of these people are not understanding how things will look, or it was done intentionally, one or the other. I
Yeah.
have no way of knowing. Secondly, I don't know who this Alistair Black person is, but the fact that you're sharing the name with Alistair Crowley, who is the embodiment of the beast, the six, and all that witches, warlock nonsense, that's a little troublesome to me. But just real quick, because I have no real dog in this.
Well,
But
like I said, Alistair Black is one of the guys who like outright like claims to be like a Satanist.
Oh,
So
there-
obviously
there-
that was inspiration is just simply there. So
Yeah.
But so I know that one was a little bit heavy for some of you guys. Maybe you guys are a little bit weirded out. Maybe you're looking for a crossover right now. So I'm gonna go ahead and drop us off on a lighter note for our next topic. Let's talk about a joke, and that joke is the WNBA, because apparently Brittany Griner is back. Brittany Griner is back, and apparently people are upset that no one showed up to go watch her big comeback. Now let's rewind here for a little bit. Brittany Griner is like this 7-foot woman. I'm using quotation marks here because even Russia wasn't sure if she was actually a woman or not. About 2 years ago, she went to Russia because she was playing there part-time. Surprisingly, the WNBA actually doesn't pay that much, so a lot of these women go play for teams in Europe to make ends meet, because that's how much the success of WNBA is. So if Brittany Griner has to go to Russia, you can only imagine what the other people who aren't Brittany Griner are getting paid, but that's besides the point. She went to Russia, and apparently she had drug paraphernalia on her, which is a big no-no in Russia, so they arrested her. They initially sentenced her to like 10 years in a Russian prison or whatnot. Essentially, they were using her as a political football. So they had her incarcerated, and it was like, hey, well, if you want us to release, this superstar celebrity over here, give us one of our guys back. So this is a thing going back for many months. People didn't want her back. People were trying to calling for her to get her back. We essentially traded her for the Russian merchant of death. So we literally traded in a war criminal for a WNBA player, and the WNBA player came back home. So Brittany Griner is back. I think she's playing for like the Phoenix Mercury now, which if you're in the WNBA, good luck with you. But she had her first game at the Staples Center in LA a few nights ago, and apparently the place was half full. Now, for the big return of Brittany Griner, keep in mind the Staples Center holds about 20,000 people in full capacity, and only about 10,000 showed up, which, hey, for a WNBA game, that's probably more than I would expect to show up for a game. So you probably should count your blessings. But some people were pretty upset that more people didn't show up. So WNBA coach here asks, how is this not a sellout? How did the crowd not show up for Brittany Griner's big return? As I said here,
WNBA. So
as I said here, it was only 50% full, which, given this WNBA, you probably should count your blessings there. But Phoenix Mercury head coach had a little issue with the fact that, hey, why are people not showing up to support Brittany Griner? Here's what she said here. This is a quick little 20-second clip I can pull up here.
It was great, but honestly, come on, LA. We didn't sell out the arena for BG. I expected more, to be honest, right? It was great, it was loud, but how was it not a sellout? How was it not a sellout?
I have a genuine question. Why doesn't the NBA or the WNBA, why don't they play in bikinis if they want people to show up?
Oh my god!
Well, here's the problem. The women in the
serious. Sorry.
Here's the problem.
We don't want to see them in bikinis.
Yeah.
You have a picture of Brittany Griner that you could show CS so she could imagine what the bikini would look like?
Yeah, I can pull one up for you here. It's not going to be pleasant, but I can pull one up.
Yeah, pull one up so you can see.
Well, don't they do that with women's flag football for the the Victoria's Secret thing or whatever?
Well, we'll see.
Those women are actually attractive, though.
Yeah, here's the problem, Johnson. You're thinking of feminine-looking women. The women who play in the WNBA look like they've served time in prison. They're not.
Yeah, they have
feminine.
Yeah. She has. Literally served time.
They look like the cast of Orange Is the New Black. That's what they look like.
But you know what? Listening to the coach talk,
giving her voice.
Listening to that coach talk, she doesn't believe her words.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, listening to her say those things that came out of her mouth was just she doesn't even believe that it should have been a full sellout crowd for a WNBA game while the Lakers had a playoff homestand. It makes no
that's
sense.
Brittany Griner, by the way, just in case you were wondering. So
Yeah, she's
nobody
a man.
wants to see that in a bikini.
Well,
Is
perhaps
she a biological female or is she transgender?
Here's the story. When she got arrested in Russia, apparently Russia forced her to take a DNA test to see if that was actually a woman. Because have you guys actually heard Brittany Griner talk?
Yeah, like she sounds like a guy.
She sounds like a dude. Like I'm not even I'm not even trying to be like mean. Like she sounds like a dude. And even Russia was like
putting testosterone add to her voice naturally. Or like
well, some people take steroids and stuff like that. So but here's
Ripley.
Yeah, or what's her name? Gianna Grace or something like that. Yeah, it's Jordan Grace. That's a
I'm
thing
sorry,
in
but
itself.
I always thought she was transgender.
Yeah, here's a clip of her talking for
did
the
too.
guys who were looking in. Well, let me see if I can put the sound here.
Real game and everything. The love from the fans when it came out was amazing.
Yeah, that's Brittany talking.
Guy.
I can barely hear it.
Sounds like a fucking guy.
I appreciate everything a little bit more.
Yeah, I bet you did feel it.
Moments that I used to just like,
Oh no. Yep. No, that's a dude.
Yep.
That's a fucking dude.
Yep. Honestly, just appreciating everything.
Wow.
So but by the way, I have a little insight here because I'm from the West Coast. I've been to Staples Center a few times before. Obviously, there's these box suites at the Staples Center or the Crypto Arena, whatever they're calling it now. But there's these box suites at the Staples Center. If you try to getting into these box suites for, let's say, a Lakers game, right? You're probably going to shell minimum $1,000, maybe even more. If you're going to like the Kings, maybe you go in for a couple of hundred. But these are very expensive seats. When I went there there was these tickets that were available for WNBA games. You know how much a box suite at the Staples Center was for a WNBA game?
$50.
No, way less than that.
Oh.
It was $20. I'm not even making this up. It was $20 for box suites, and they still couldn't sell them. So imagine here. I'll give you a suite at the Staples Center. It's only $20. All you have to watch a WNBA game, and people say, "Nah, I'm good."
It's a professional sports league, and it's $20. That minor league baseball is more expensive than that, right?
Yeah,
I can verify that. Yes, I can verify that. As a season seed holder for a minor league team, I can verify that is actually, that's I probably would pay more. Well, I don't know why people are I don't want to say surprised because they did have big time celebrities at this game, did they not? I mean, Billie Jean King, that was like the only name.
The stars who showed up for this WNBA.
The only person I recognized was Billie Jean King, and that was it.
Who's like what, 90?
Well, she would lose the battle of the sexes at this point.
Yeah.
Well, nobody returned because I don't think they cared. Period. And I don't. And it has nothing to do with her. I don't know why people thought that she was this big rallying point to bring her back. I mean, I'm glad she's out of prison. I'm not a harsh man. I'm glad that she's no longer there as Putin's in part of his harem. But I don't think. He kept her there, for what is it? Nefarious purposes. I don't know. I'll just say that I think people really just don't care about the WNBA period. That's why they didn't go. I don't think Brittany Griner being there for her first game is going to like, oh yes, I've got to see her making a comeback. Why? No, nobody cares about this particular sport, and nobody cares about her. It wasn't like if they. It was. I mean, it would have been different if, say, like a Dennis Rodman had been held in North Korea, and then he came back, even for like an exhibition game. People would have flocked to that. even although which wouldn't happen because Dennis Rodman and Kim Jong Un are like besties.
Yeah.
But for this case, no, she should this coach, as I'm reading this, this coach shouldn't have been shocked because nobody cares about her league, nobody cares about her sport, and let alone cares about Brittany Griner. Though again, I'm happy that she's no longer servicing Putin or Medvedev's
Cleaning toilets overseas.
all that. I mean, she was the queen of the Kremlin, but
Well, we gave up Nicolas Cage and Lord of War.
Yeah,
Like
we gave up a literal gun running war criminal for a WNBA player, and half the people didn't even show up to our first game back.
Well, we gave the Merchant of Death up because there was a lot of publicity around this particular person, and it fit certain demographics. You had the black demographic, you had the women demographic, you had, I presume, the LGBTQ demographic, and they would all combine and say, if you do not rescue this woman, then you are racist, sexist, and a homophobe. I don't know if that would be accurate, but again, nobody cares about this particular league. I mean, again, I don't wish her ill. I'm glad she's now back in the United States, enjoying the freedom, and I guess no longer kneeling for the national anthem. But no, nobody's going to flock to this.
No.
Brittany
So
Griner without it.
I just want to point this out. What we did in real life is literally an SNL sketch. We traded in a war criminal for a WNBA. That would be an hilarious sketch on Saturday Night Live if they were actually still funny. But no, that's what we did in reality. And I think the other problem is that the Turner and ESPN, aka Disney, has really been pushing the WNBA like super hard over the last few years. And I think some people might be buying into the hype that they actually believe because ESPN is giving them a hard push that the WNBA is actually popular when it's not. It's never been popular ever. Even with this hard push, nobody cares. It's never turned a profit in the history of being a league. They're literally subsidized by the NBA, the league that actually makes money. That's the only reason why they even still exist at this point. So it's like they're complaining that people didn't show up for it. It's the WNBA. When has anyone ever shown up for a WNBA game? Like, people were talking about, oh, well, the New York Liberty got a super team this year. Everyone's like, who? They don't even know they played in New York. What are you talking about? Like, no one cares. They just can't accept the fact that nobody cares.
If they had been sincere, you would have seen big names from the NBA show up, and they could have. Where was what's his name? Steve Kerr. Where was Popovich? Where was LeBron? Where was Durant?
LeBron was getting swept, so he wasn't worried about
where were all these big basketball names?
If LeBron had been there, it truly would have been a flop.
Well, where were all of these
I know that
names coming to watch this? They should have. They should have attended to support this player who is now the beacon of freedom, but they didn't. They chose not to. Where are all of these? Where was Kamala? Why didn't she show up? Where's AOC? Where's Nancy Pelosi? Where all these? Joe Biden should have gone or sent Dr. Biden to go and watch.
Rick. Even in LA, Los Angeles, one of the most liberal cities in the planet, they could not give away tickets to the WNBA. What does that tell you?
Well, it tells me that Brittany Griner should be paid the exact amount as LeBron James because it should be equal pay for equal work. So she obviously needs to make all those millions of dollars.
Okay. I don't want to scream at you that she doesn't bring in the revenue that LeBron James does, which is the exact problem with the fucking WNBA expecting equal treatment from the league that props their existence up. The people, fans of the WNBA and their advocates are so fucking deluded. When it's like, no, okay, tennis, golf. I mean, these actual sports that have a longer legitimacy than your own league, people care about more. You know what I mean? This is a professional sports league, and they are consistently propped up for what? Being an incompetent professional business? I don't get it. Stop it. Stop pushing this shit.
Well, who's the target audience? I always ask this when it comes to movies. I'm going to ask this about.
Lesbians and Hollywood celebrities. Like
Well,
it's
they,
lesbians, Natalie Portman, and Viola Davis. That's the target audience for the WNBA.
Where was Viola
Sausage Monkey.
Davis? She should have been there for her big comeback. Natalie Portman should have been there for her big comeback. I mean, assuming that Natalie Portman even knows, how to play basketball. I don't know if she does, but where were all of these people?
Natalie Portman is so insufferable that even the Jews think that she's a traitor. That's how bad Natalie Portman is. You understand?
But again, if your target audience is what you say it is, which is just lesbians and Hollywood stars, like Ellen DeGeneres would be the model for the NBA, then it's a very niche market. This is the same reason that Bros bombed, because it's a very niche film. No matter what, no matter what they are saying about
tornado warning.
Well, that was Brittany Griner alarm.
She went missing again.
No, it's CIA.
She's just. I mean, it's a very niche market. I mean, like I said, Bros bombed because nobody, despite it being like a big romantic comedy, it was clearly gay centric. Same for this. Well, not same for this league. I'm assuming that there are probably one or two straight females who enjoy the NBA, but by and large.
But this is your problem, though. This is the big reason why this doesn't work. Even women would prefer watching the NBA over the WNBA because the women who actually want to fuck the NBA players, they don't care about the WNBA. They don't want to see a bunch of dudes who look like Brittany Griner play for terrible basketball for the course of a couple. Like nobody wants to watch that. Like, they're all trying to.
Zoe Deschanel cooking.
No, even she admitted nobody wanted to watch.
But even
that.
like what is it? The Kardashians and like what is it? The Jenner girl. I can't think of her fucking name right now. It's the same kind of thing. It's like they go to the NBA games for the social aspect of it. Nobody's going to a WNBA game. It has no social currency.
Mm-hmm. And look, we've been making this joke for years that look, we don't care about the WNBA, and it feels like they think that all the propaganda that they've been putting out there, people are going to change them. No, we still don't care. You need to accept and let it go at this point. So hey, look, you got 10,000 people that show up to a WNBA game. Be grateful because you're going to get a lot less as the season goes on because it's the WNBA. So you're literally complaining about what will probably be your highest attendance of the entire year. So any final notes on this one before we move on to our closer?
Yeah. Basically, to give Brittany Griner, first off, a proper Russian nickname, she's Putin's sausage wench. Let's just get it right there. That's her proper title.
But which one has a sausage?
I believe both. But I mean, pretty sure it's both. But anyway, I wouldn't know personally. But as for the WNBA and Brittany Griner and that coach that was bitching, I'm gonna quote Chaozu from Dragon Ball Z Abridged. Nobody cares, Krillin.
Nope. Absolutely not.
I mean, it's just nobody fucking cares. The WNBA, I couldn't even name a fucking team from the WNBA. I couldn't even name a fucking player from the WNBA. That's how much I don't give a flying fuck about the WNBA. You want to know why? Because honestly, well, fuck sports or to be completely honest, but there's just no fucking interest. That's why there's such a fucking huge wage gap. Because they don't have enough interest to even attract, well, I'll just fucking say it, dead people in their graves. They're boring the living, they're boring the dead, they're boring everything.
I mean, boring. Like I said, we've been telling them this for years, and they're still. Yeah, that should be a challenge for everyone on the show. Name every WNBA team. It's not even a lot.
I'll fail. I'll fucking fail every time.
I can name one.
What do you say, Mongo?
I can name one. Because they won a championship. It was probably like 15 years ago. It was a Detroit team. I forget what it's called. Was it the
Well, then you fail.
The Spunk.
Freedom?
'Cause I remember there being a big deal when they won the championship. It was like a big deal for like 2 hours, and then everybody went back to like listening to D4L or whatever the fuck they was doing at the time. So I remember it happening, but it's a fleeting memory. And look, the WNBA.
Oh, it was the Detroit Shock, who no longer exists. They moved to. They
Well,
moved
they don't
to.
exist anymore. Okay, well, never
Yeah.
mind.
Yeah, they became Static Shock.
Never mind. Then.
Yeah, they started out as the Detroit Shock, then they became the Tulsa Shock. Now they're the Dallas Wings. So there's been like 8 different variations of these different franchises because guess what? They don't draw money. So
These names by the end of the night. So
Let's have. Was it the Dallas? What are they called? The Dallas Wild Wings? What? The Dallas? What?
Dallas Wings is just named the
Dallas
team
Wings.
now.
Yeah.
they might as well
Let's
just call them Debbie Does Dallas.
Let's have. Oh gosh. Let's have the Dallas Wings play against the Dallas Mavericks, and let's have that competition, and maybe
Smart.
they'll attract an audience there. But look,
Seattle
I'm
Storm.
sorry. Nobody is going to want to watch the WNBA, and if the NBA just cut them off completely, how long would they last? They would probably fold pretty quickly.
You know what would happen? We would go to like a WNBA, get a suite even because we can afford it. Go to a WNBA game and we'll just watch TV like the whole time we're there. Like that's essentially what
Man,
we would do.
that's the plan.
The WNBA couldn't even beat the Harlem Globetrotters.
Honestly, like if you ever have a live version of any of your podcasts, that's what you should do. You should fly to LA for a WNBA game.
I'm down for that. Yeah,
So there
let's
you
go
go.
ahead. Let's
Live
all
from
get
the
together.
LA
Yeah.
basketball
Let's all
place.
get together, spend $20. You know, it's sad that parking at the Academy Museum is more expensive than the suite at the WNBA.
Yeah.
That's sad.
Hell, if I go to the Atlanta Braves game up at Truist Park, it would cost me more in parking than the actual ticket for WNBA for a suite. Like that's how bad.
I think I paid more than for parking when I went to the Rockies game, and the Rockies game, the actual tickets were pretty inexpensive, all things considered. So again, always ask who the target audience is. Who would be rushing to see a WNBA game, let alone Brittany Griner's big comeback?
Josh, would you bring Bud Light? Would that be the sponsor for the WNBA? Yeah, so okay, we needed that laugh to get back on track, and people are back now. So we're gonna go ahead and hop over to our closer, which is I know I've been hyping this show up for you guys, so you're like super excited about it. Oh yeah, Mike's back here. There we go.
I know what you're talking about.
Sorry, I was babysitting my nephew, and I was gonna check, make sure he didn't put his hand in the toast or something, and then actually my brother came back anyway, so I should probably dip out. Thank you for having me on.
Do a quick little plug real quick so we can find more of your stuff.
Thank you. I appreciate it. So zeitgeistreviews.com. You can hear my schizo ramblings in like essay form, zeitgeistreviews.com/FAQ. That's my theory on the culture war. It's insane schizo stuff. If you have any suggestions, let me know. Like you said, maybe a Satanist like warning or whatever you guys think, I'll put it in. That's pretty much it. I don't know. Just use the site. Write reviews. I accept normies, LGBT, everybody, whatever, as long as you're anti-woke. So yeah, thank you for having me on.
All
right, bye.
Likewise.
Thank you for joining. Hopefully we can get you back here soon on the show. So thanks for joining us, man.
Yeah, have Jay Dyer on too. He's an expert, man.
Oh yeah, I mean we'll have to have this conversation again later. So
all right, appreciate it.
All right, so we're gonna hop over to our closer here, which is Echo. They officially here's what happened. They announced that they were going to give this woman her show, and if you don't know who Echo is, Echo was a character they introduced in Hawkeye. Apparently, she was somewhat involved with one of the groups that Hawkeye killed after Endgame because he went crazy because his family disappeared for a little while, and then so she's an enemy of Hawkeye In the course of like 6 episodes, she turns good again, and for whatever reason, Disney decided, you know what, we're gonna give her her own Disney Plus show. People are gonna love it. Well, when Disney started losing money very, very fast, it was like, you know what, let's put a pause on Echo because we may not want people to like see this and think that it sucks. Then no one's gonna buy our Disney Plus subscription, so they put it on pause. They've tried everything to keep this thing going. They've said that Daredevil's supposed to be in this series. Vincent D'Onofrio is supposed to play Kingpin in this series, so they're trying to get all the real popular characters in here so that people will actually like it. But here's the problem: when you make a superhero whose only features is that she's Native American, deaf, she has one leg, so she's disabled. And let's be honest, she might be gay too, so let's throw that one in there as well. You have a character that nobody really cares about because she has no personality whatsoever. Now, there was rumors even going up to the point that they were going to make her a member of the Avengers in the upcoming movies, which is why they gave her her own Disney Plus show in the first place. But now there's rumors that, hey, look, Disney's just going to dump this whole thing sometime in December because apparently the show's not very good. I know this is a shocking revelation for some of you people that Disney made a show that sucks, but apparently they did that. New rumor here suggests that Marvel Studios is going to dump the series on one shot because Echo was so bad they had to reshoot the entire thing. Now, I want to keep this in perspective here with this girl who played Echo here. I do not believe she's ever had any acting credit. Literally before the show that she was in. And keep in mind, it's a show where she doesn't speak. So her voice is not required whatsoever to be a part of this show because she's deaf. She's basically a mute, so she doesn't speak. All she has to do is vaguely emote. And yeah, I'm looking at her IMDb. She literally has never had an acting role up to this point, and Disney gave her her own show. So shocker that this show was bad. Here, let's get into the story here. New rumors suggest that Marvel Studios' upcoming series Echo claims that the series was so bad originally that they have to reshoot the entire thing. This comes after Marvel Studios president Kevin Feige announced at Disney upfront that all the episodes of Echo will be released at one time on November 29th. So normally what they do with Disney Plus, that they do it week by week with the episodes. This one is going to go full binge Netflix style on October 29th. It's going to be 6 episodes.
Isn't that Thanksgiving?
Probably. I'm not sure, but I don't want to say
Will you
so.
be watching football instead?
Yes. No, absolutely not. No, actually, it's the day. It's the week after Thanksgiving. So yeah.
Oh, okay.
Well,
Okay.
It seems slightly inappropriate to broadcast the show with a one-legged lesbian deaf Native American around Thanksgiving, given that Thanksgiving is a celebration of white supremacy and the obliteration.
So you know there's going to be a lot of, hey, you know, all you colonizers and Thanksgiving, you know that's happening because there's such hacks. They're going to have to do it. That's the way this thing goes. But yeah. I'm going to continue here before I go back to that question. Yeah, like I said, so they're changing up the release schedule for this one. This was supposed to arrive originally this summer on Disney Plus, but after, like I said, Disney started losing money, they suspended all of their productions for Disney Plus series. Said they were going to announce it at a later date. Now this one's being announced for, like I said, November now. So the rumor here is from Scooper. Jeff Snyder says that during the appearance on the Hike Mike show, he was asked by the host John Rocco what he heard about the show, and this is what he said. He says that I heard the show was kind of plagued by issues throughout production. I heard that it was a mess. The show came in and basically had to reshoot the entire thing. I'm told that originally they shot 8 episodes. Kevin Feige thought it was unreleasable, so they cut it down to about 4 episodes or 6 in post, and they ended up reshooting it. So yeah, that's usually a good sign for a television show there. It says, my source did not actually know how many episodes we'll wind up with, but apparently they needed top-down rejiggering, and Kevin was not happy about it. So when they announced that all the episodes were going out in one day, it was like, huh? It's like you just said, you read between the lines on this one, it sounds like that this show is a lost cause, he concluded. So yeah, I got pretty much giving you the backstory about this one. So you have a Native American, possibly lesbian, one-legged deaf superhero, starred by a woman who has never acted before outside of like the 2 episodes she was in the Hawkeye series like a year ago, and you wonder why things go drastically wrong. I don't know who I want to start with. Maybe I'll start with Rob here. How do you feel about Echo not being good? Are you shocked that this thing's a hunking pile of crap?
Well, I mean, look, I don't think I would be a fan of most of Disney Plus content, most of their shows. However, I find it very puzzling that they greenlit a show that they clearly had no idea what to do with. They didn't have any development. If I mean, this is how does this get to this point where you're like, oh, this is actually crap? Like after the fact, after you've shot it, after it's supposed.
Remember dailies? Remember those were a thing, like,
right? But you're supposed to know how it's going, as a producer, the head writer working on it, Kevin Feige. I mean, as a creative person, does Kevin Feige just say, oops, I dropped the ball, I should have been more on it? You know what I mean? It's like, who is the adult in charge of this project? So I'm not surprised, but it's like, oh, okay, again, you're tokenizing these people. You're using race, sexuality, gender, whatever, to sort of sell this, to use them as a tool. But you don't support them because these scripts aren't good. It's not thought out. It's not setting them up for success. So it's like, it's a really toothless exercise trying to, oh, hey, we've got a Native American who's deaf and disabled. Okay, but it's shit. Like the actual content itself is shit. So it's like, what are you really saying about these groups you're trying to represent?
Yep. Well, representation. That's the only point of these types of shows. But again, I will go back to the question I ask constantly: who is the target audience? It's not Marvel fans because they're tiring of the endless glut of Marvel product. Not to mention, they're not going to watch a show or be devoted to a show that has a minor character that appeared in one or two episodes of a show that they really didn't even embrace to begin with. Then the fact that they're dumping it all in one go, to me, suggests that they know that if they released it the way they normally did, which is a week by week, fewer and fewer people would tune in. Now they can just say, okay, we'll use this as an excuse. We're going to put all the shows out there so people can, quote, binge watch. But what's going to happen is if it's boring enough, they'll tune out after 2 or 3 episodes. It brings me back to the idea of when they introduced the first female Doctor Who, because we needed a female doctor and little girls could aspire to grow up to be a Time Lord. Yeah, the first 3 episodes got big ratings, massive ratings, but I always said, watch for the ratings for episode 6, because by that time the novelty will have worn down. And what happened? The ratings kept going down and down and down and down each succeeding episode. Here, they knew that they weren't going to have enough people follow it. They know that people weren't going to care. So they decided to just dump it all. The fact that they cut it down to from 8 to 6 episodes or what have you, is that they had no real story. And you can't just rely on a one-legged lesbian deaf Native American and say, yeah, the whole story is what? That she's a one-legged deaf lesbian Native American? That's not an interesting story, because you have nothing. You have no story. You have no arc. You have no compelling interest. Minor character who's not even that popular with any of the Marvel fans, who are overwhelmed already with the endless amounts of things. Is she going to be part of the continuing saga of the world's longest, most expensive soap opera? Is she going to be part of future? Is she going to be part of the Kang dynasty? Who knows?
We don't even have a Kang anymore. What are you talking about? Like, Kang's probably gonna be in jail for the next few months. Like, there's no Kang.
He's gonna shift. He's gonna, maybe Echo could be the new Kang. Because Kang can take on any form. I guess I don't.
Sure, why not? Cass, let me ask you just real quick about this whole thing. Like, I know you love like the absolute MCU. So, like, at what point? Where's the breaking point of a lot of this stuff? Because I think it was like not Echo. Ironheart is still on suspension right now. They haven't made any announcement about that. I think that one was already in the can, but that one was supposed to have a whole bunch of like drag queens and all kinds of like identity politics and trans people and stuff like that. Do you think they're finally getting the message that, hey, maybe this stuff isn't a good idea, or have they not lost enough money? Because it's like there's literally no justification whatsoever for why this thing should have been greenlit in the first place, let alone to the point that where we are right now.
Well, the fact that this is even releasing to the general audience goes to show that they haven't really learned their lesson. The one thing I can give Warner Brothers over, Disney is that they basically assessed what they had and established that some of the things that they had in the can were abominations that were detrimental to their brand, in which they literally made them a tax write-off. So at least WB could reassess itself and come to that conclusion with some of their projects that they had already done. Whereas, well, Disney has not done that. They're releasing this, and obviously what we're gonna have to deal with, well, you're this bigot, and apparently you're like a 5-1 with this one, since Echo's like every fucking thing under the sun. And I don't think anyone's excited for this. I haven't heard anyone talk about it outside of this, weekly podcast. Honestly, I don't really see anyone talk about this, and no one's looking forward to it. Obviously, I think they're just dropping this show like a hot steaming pile of shit all at once, just so it doesn't drag on. Because imagine how bad this show probably is in comparison to the other bad stuff. Like, this one seems like they're ashamed of it. They want it to be over, but they want to put it out there as content for Disney's for Disney Plus. So it's going to be interesting to see how bad this one is, or generally speaking, how it's received, because it seems like they just want to get it out there and be done with it, as as opposed to just people weekly just tearing into this bitch for what it is.
It is a little sorry, I'll say it's a little reminiscent of when they tried to do that Wonder Woman pilot, and was it David E. Kelly tried to create this woman pilot, and it was so bad that they just said, no, we're not even going to release the pilot. And it was because it was such a mess.
By the way, just I want you guys to really emphasize and understand just how big of a fuck up this actually is. The actress who is playing Echo is in fact actually deaf and actually has one leg, so she's not even acting on that level. So she just literally found just a complete amateur and pulled her off the street and gave her her own Disney Plus show. It's like, hey, it goes back to those diversity quotas we were talking about earlier in the show, right? Just find somebody who fits a checkbox and we'll figure everything out in post, right? All these super qualified people. Well, apparently this wasn't one of them. Mongo, what do you think about this?
It's sad. Echo is a character that's been around in Marvel Comics for about 20 years. She's basically a C-level Daredevil character. And it kind of boils down to there's not enough there for Echo to have her own TV show. She could have been a perfectly fine side character in a Daredevil series, just like Hawkeye didn't need to have his own show. And that's really what is beating people to death on the Marvel Universe in general, is now you've taken some of the bigger characters and you have elevated some of the characters like Iron Man and Guardians of the Galaxy as being bigger than they really were in the comic books. But now you're just digging in the crates now. Like Echo, most people, even if you read comic books casually, you probably never come across Echo. Moon Knight is another one. It wasn't until recently that people really started reading Moon Knight. So it's like you're really digging for characters to try to turn everything into a franchise, when sometimes these characters are just good enough to be sidekicks. They're sidekicks in the TV show. You could add them in, take them out, add them in, take them out, and that's it. Just imagine if, you had Star Trek and then somebody decided, we're going to have a Lieutenant Uhura show. It's like, what the fuck? Like, we're going to have a Spock show. It's like, what? Like, we barely know these fucking characters. You know what I'm saying? Like, you have to do this thing in a certain way. Now, in terms of them taking somebody completely off the street and then introducing her into the Marvel Universe, it's like, it really does the young lady a disservice, because not everybody's shitting all over her when it's not really her fault. She's deaf. She's only got one leg, and they chose her for that reason. and then put her in a position, and they shine the light on her, and she's like, okay, like I'm gonna do my best, and then she fucks up royally in front of the world, and now everybody's like, well, she was completely unqualified for the job, and she had no business being there. And it's like, okay, yes, we know that, but it's not her fault because she didn't give herself the fucking job. It was other people.
Put it this way. At least they didn't put her in charge of guns. So I mean, there could have been better outcomes there. Orange, what do you think about this?
For She-Hulk season 2. There you go.
Please stop.
Mix it in together.
Don't give him any ideas.
What do I think? Well, if I was to say what I was originally going to say, I would have gotten this stream pulled. But so I'm gonna refrain from all the mocking jokes that I had completely set up. That would have been fucking hilarious. But this girl. So we have a hero who's got one leg. She's deaf. She's mute. Probably a lesbian, and she's Native American. How do they tell this girl action? I mean, it's like, okay, action. Oh, shit.
I'm assuming they have to hire a sound language person.
How do we get this woman's attention? Okay,
red light, green light.
A bottle at her head.
Red light, green light.
I mean, seriously. Fucking, I don't understand the premise of this fucking character. And the fact that they are saying, okay, we're just going to freaking go the nuclear option, just drop it and let everybody consume it all at once. Yeah, that does kind of speak to how bad it is, because it's like, we don't fucking care. We know people are not going to go week by week to buy Disney Plus to watch this shit. Mm-hmm. I mean, I just recently took a look at Ant-Man 3, and I swear I almost had a freaking aneurysm out of sheer anger watching that, because it's like, are you fucking kidding me with this stupidity? But I just don't get the premise of this stupidity. But the fact that Kevin Feige allegedly is saying that this was completely unwatchable. Dude, what the fuck took you so long? Everything after Phase 3 is unwatchable. Thor: Love and Thunder put me into such a depressive state that I almost went to the store to buy alcohol. And I only drink once a fucking year. Once a year.
I hope it's not eggnog.
No, I would have bought fucking hard liquor. I'm Irish.
Don't love eggnog.
You would like eggnog, you freaking weirdo.
Anyway, but it's like, what the fuck? I mean, I showed my mom, who is a freaking general moviegoer. I showed her Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness. She liked the first Doctor Strange. That one was interesting. But when she saw Doctor Strange 2, she's like, that was just fucking stupid. That's a direct quote, by the way, folks. And I'm like, yeah, that's what I basically thought too. Disney and Marvel don't even know the rules of their own fucking universe. Mm-hmm. And now they got some deaf, disabled, yada, yada, yada. And it's like, why would you do that to this poor girl? You
set her up for failure.
Exactly. You set her up for failure. People are going to fucking make fun of her.
It's like, look, if I put this girl in charge to rewire my house and she starts a fire and burns it down, it's like, I can't blame her. She was never qualified to begin with.
Exactly. This just goes to show the absolute ineptitude of those who are in charge of Marvel. This is the absolute proof that people need to absorb in their tiny little brains, that says Marvel doesn't fucking know what they're doing, folks. Why keep giving them your money? Because it has the Marvel and Disney logo on it. I could take a piss in a jar, slap those logos on it, and you dumbasses would be stupid enough to buy it. Because that's what you're doing when you freaking watch shit like this.
Well, I was going to go to CS, but since Spencer wants us to go to CS, I'm going to go to TW. TW, are you going to buy Disney Plus for this?
Oh, no. Not at all. Honestly, there's nothing on Disney Plus that I really even watch. Yeah, not even close. I mean, basically, to pretty much repeat what everybody else said, this was a completely stupid decision. You know, and it's like you're just putting this poor girl like in front of the world to be just criticized. She has no experience whatsoever, and I can't blame her because I mean
Oh
she's
my
just
god.
like happy to take the role. So I'm like, hey, I'm not gonna blame her on that, but yeah, it's just a stupid decision all around, and it's just to meet those quotas. And this is something I see a common sort of like a common pattern that I'm seeing in a lot of this shit. I'm seeing a lot of this shit with like even like the Little Mermaid and stuff like that with that Haley Bailey girl. And yeah, it's like she got cast for that. She was just doing a role or whatever, but you had all these freaking psychos going crazy over her over that role. It's like don't blame her, blame the people that cast her for that role and that made that movie. It's just like, yeah, I just hate to see that because it's like the people that play these roles. I mean, unless if they're the ones like kind of bitching about, the criticism, they don't deserve it. I mean, like they don't really deserve it because they're just taking the roles. It's more the people that created the dumpster fires that deserve the criticism more than anything.
I don't understand one thing here, and I'm sorry to jump in, CS. If the original was so unreleasable, why did Kevin Feige essentially double down and say, "All right, reshoot the whole thing," when he could have just cut his losses and said, this was an idea that should never have gone forward, and we apologize to this woman. Maybe we'll put her in as a supporting character in other parts or in other shows. But why reshoot? Why reshoot the whole thing when you could have just saved money? I don't understand the thinking there.
Rob, you know what this is? This is literally the plot to Fool's Paradise.
Yeah. Yeah.
This is unironically the plot to that film. Go ahead, Johnson.
Okay, so my take on this is like, obviously it was probably destined to fail in the beginning because nothing I've seen lately. I mean, even like I had my criticisms of the Super Mario Brothers, and that's as like as tame as it'll get. But it's like they I'm disappointed that they just can't find a good story because like as you've said, she's Native American, she's deaf, she's got one leg, and she's like gay, right? So you like behind all of these things are really good story fodder talking points, like overcoming adversity in the face of being disadvantaged or discriminated. That's a legit like underdog sort of thing. Maybe you could have had like you could have gotten really dark with it. I mean, the king, whatever, what is it, Kingman?
Kingpin.
Okay, sorry. You could have had him like using her as like a daredevil detector, and he punishes her. She's had maybe a lot of sexual trauma because of him and his cronies, and this idea that she can't stand up for herself. I mean, you could have done a really good job of working through trauma, overcoming adversity and discrimination, like I said, overcoming disadvantages, striking out on your own. These are all good universal themes that could have been addressed at some point in even like a long movie about this, and it's like, oh, what are you gonna do now? I mean, like, what is the actual story for the show?
There's no plot. There was no plot. They saw a diversity hire. They went to push diversity higher, and then they realized, oh yeah, we don't have writers. Because I don't know who wrote the show. Maybe I can figure it out here. But I can only imagine that whoever was hired to write the show probably wasn't qualified either. So
yeah. Well, it's not even, like it's not even about like the personality checkbox things. It's like if you can give us a good story about a genuinely like a universal sort of arc, there probably would be a lot more people that would support this. And I mean, people of good faith and goodwill that would be willing to support this. I mean, if they could, like I said, write it well, I might even watch it, but it's like, I don't think I'm going to. So the
director of this series is Sydney Freeland, who wrote who directed Reservoir Dogs or Reservation Dogs.
Yeah.
Not Reservoir Dog, not the good one, the one that's on Hulu. So that's her credit, and I don't think she has too many other. I mean, she wrote a couple episodes of what was it, The Walking Dead, that World Beyond and Fear the Walking Dead. So I mean, she's done some TV stuff there. So I mean, she's more qualified than some of the other people that they've hired for this thing. God, Jesus
Well, I mean, but
Christ.
that's even more sad on some level, because if you don't have good writing, you don't have a good script, you're not going to have a good product. I mean, like 9.5 times out of 10, it's the writing that sucks.
Yep.
Yes, and I mean, think about it. You had to keep her story going. You mean you were? I assume that you were not just going to have one season of her story. You were going to have more and more, and build up this kind of franchise or series around her. But the way it's constantly described by all of us, and probably the promotional material, as this deaf, one-legged lesbian Native American, that when you tell any person that sounds almost like parody of diversity. You needed to have. I mean, that's why we needed to have.
We need more check boxes, damn it.
Yeah, yeah. The we needed to have a black Little Mermaid, because there's never been a black woman in the Disney movie or in any movie in the history of all cinema. It just sounds like a joke.
Yeah.
It sounds
It's almost like a Vince McMahon parody. It's like, bring me the one-legged lesbian, damn it! It's like, this is what I think of in my head when I hear this.
Look,
And by the way, I'll let you go in a second, but just real quick, this whole show started about Cate Blanchett talking about, oh yeah, we need more women. They're all so super qualified. For the record, this show has 2 female writers, a female director, and of course a female star. And it's so bad they have to reshoot the entire thing, and now Disney's just dumping it. So are there really that many qualified female writers behind the scenes, or maybe you guys are just garbage?
No.
I know that they had, I know you did. I know you did the discussion on Cate Blanchett before I got in, but did Cate Blanchett watch She-Hulk? And can she watch that and say, "Oh yes, definitely we"?
I hope not.
Like, no, I mean, can
Look,
she say
and
that there's that these females, by virtue of being females, that you're qualified to write?
Well, I'll say this as a
But-
writer, okay? I love writing. I think my stuff is like decent, okay? But like if I were to go and adapt it for film, I would have a lot of problems. That's a whole new medium, and that's a whole different thing. So even if you have a good writer, and then if I had to get a female director to like work with me, like there's so many pitfalls right there. And I mean, like being overly agreeable with somebody is like when it's a passion project. It's like it's I don't know. There's so many bad metaphors I can.
And I've used this movie as an example a few times in the last couple weeks. Okay, Dark Man. Okay, I know Echo is never going to be Dark Man, but it's just like, it's okay for me. It's like, that's compelling. So, somebody's literally blown up, and they spend the rest of the movie trying to get revenge. And like I don't know, I love that. And it's as simple as that, like providing a dynamic character and giving him a reason to exist. Now it's a chick in this instance, and I agree with CS. There are ways to make stuff like this compelling, but as Rick said, it's a joke. It's like a running joke of all these check boxes of being a victim, basically. And all of these people, the writers behind the shit, they want to make these victim narratives where it's more about what you don't have than it is saying, fuck it, I'm gonna be a hero anyway. I'm not gonna let the limitations I've been saddled with affect me, and I'm gonna be a hero regardless. That's what people want to see. They don't want to see somebody who talks in virtue signaling, and complains about the status of that white men run the world. I mean, nobody gives a shit, dude. Do something that is compelling. Do something that inspires people. That's what people want to see.
What this show should have?
Actually,
This
how
show
my arc would have ended for that. So
Yeah.
thank you.
What Echo needs is a montage to holding out for a hero. because we've never seen that. We need to
That
put
was in
that in.
Tetris, by the way. That song has been in like 3 movies I've
Yeah,
seen this year.
I know. So we need to put that in. To put that in the montage of Echo fighting, one-legged lesbian deaf Native American.
Like I said, my last thoughts on this whole thing is that we knew that this was going to be a dumpster fire from the jump. We've been mocking this thing for months, and this is why you don't create projects on the sole purpose of diversity, because this is exactly what you get. No one can say they didn't see this coming. Everyone with a brain and an IQ over 80 saw this coming. Only you idiots didn't, because you were more worried about subverting people's expectations, subverting culture, than actually writing a good TV show. And the only reason why they didn't go through this as planned is because, like I said, Disney has a little pitfall of the monies at the moment, because their war with Rob DeSantis has pretty much failed. So, oh well, fuck around and find out. Any final thoughts before we wrap this one up?
If anybody gets Disney, get it for show or for the old shit like frickin' The Absent-Minded Professor and Flubber. Don't get it for the new shit. That's not worth watching.
And the
even then, I say hold out. It's like there's no point.
Are you holding out for a hero, Jacob? Is that what you're holding out for?
Well, I mean, now that Echo is officially been announced, I guess the other one we have to wait for is the Ironheart TV show with the character that nobody likes, featuring drag queens and trans males, not trans women, trans males. So we can only wait for that other diversity and inclusion dumpster fire to come out.
Taking roles away from women.
And didn't we also lose the female Zorro, which would have been Zora?
And the Powerpuff Girls too is also another casualty as well. So
I mean, if they really, here's the thing: if they really wanted a diversity hire, they could have brought in a character from Marvel. Her name's Faiza Hussein. She is a person of color. She's a Muslim and she's female.
They already got a Muslim. They don't need 2 more Muslims.
And she wields Excalibur, so it's like, well, there you fucking go.
Yeah, they already got what's her face. Miss Marvel was like they already met the Muslim quota. They don't need any more.
The Muslim female quota in the Marvelettes.
I thought of her as like Echo version 2. I know.
They
and I know
changed Kamala Khan into a fucking Muslim. I don't even think she was a Muslim originally.
Well, they changed Miss Marvel into a completely different character anyway.
Exactly. They had to change her to get the fucking Muslim. To get the freaking Muslim shit.
I honestly think I know more about Islam than the people writing the show. So.
Well,
yes, because they're Jews, so that would make sense.
And on that note, we're going to go ahead and wrap things up. Quick little shout out to Mongo Slade, who had to jump out here at the last moment here. Also, Mike from Zeitgeist Reviews. Go check out their channels. I'll give you links to those in the description below. But we'll start off with the person who we bullied into showing her face here tonight, CS Johnson. What do you got coming up?
Hey everybody, my Kickstarter ends in like 34 hours, so go give me your money. I only need $2,000 more. And then just yep. Yes, thank you. I do have a face, so maybe next time.
She's not a disembodied voice, I swear.
No,
all right.
That's it. I'm not that interesting.
All right. Well, Orange, what do you got coming up, man?
Well, I do mystery reviews and Infinity Saga Sundays. I do movie reviews and entertainment news and all that shit rhymes. I got Iron Man 3 coming up this upcoming Sunday because we just finished Phase 1 with CS, Ray Kitty, and Ambassador and Jacob Berry for the Hack Crew. Also, I just finished doing an in-depth mystery review into Ghostbusters Afterlife. Had fun torturing everybody for a week on the hints because everybody was guessing Ghostbusters instead of Ghostbusters Afterlife. So that was fun. But yeah, other than that, the next week's hints, the first hint is North Island, which if you know it, don't say it out loud, please.
It's Shutter Island. Cassie, how you doing? What you got coming up?
You got a nap coming.
Well, yes. I don't know if you guys noticed this entire episode, but I've been like hanging on, clinging for dear life to
Yeah.
staying awake, and not.
Have you tried
obviously-
not staying up till 4 o'clock in the morning during a weekday?
I mean, to be fair, yesterday I went to bed at 6 p.m. and woke up at 3. So
Yeah.
I think I did my best. I tried, but guys, I dropped like 3 videos today, and definitely go check those out if you need some gaming content. Tomorrow I will be streaming the PlayStation Showcase, so hoping to see some interesting games there. Thursday we have the Two Reels for Feels podcast, which I'll probably be half asleep through as well. If things continue on the pace that they're on. But I always got something going on. Consider checking out Kick, where I stream playing video games and reacting to some insane things that people post in my Discord server. So yeah, it's pretty much everything I got going on. Thanks for having me, especially half asleep me. So
All right then, Rick, what you got coming up?
Well,
That's great, Rob. What you got coming up?
oh my god.
Thank you for having me again. Yeah, not a whole lot. I'm trying to get my life figured out right now, but watching a lot of movies still. James Bond, Diamonds Are Forever is the next one, and have a lot of Fritz Lang and Andre Detoff movies to watch. So just follow me on my Twitter.
All right, come on.
Okay. Well,
TW, what you got coming up?
Yeah, I got some videos coming up for this week for Thursday and Friday. I got a Facebook rant I'm scheduling for Thursday, and I got my series that not series, but a video that Chris Gord kind of inspired me to kind of make, which was the bad case of hot phobia that Hollywood seems to have. And and I may possibly talk more about Mortal Kombat 1, my in-depth thoughts on that probably later this week too. But other than that, that's it. I mostly do pretty much all types of content, but most people come for the wrestling, but no wrestling this week. I'm tired of it.
Yeah, I think we've had enough for one show. All right, Rick, all serious this time. Go ahead.
I'm scared to go.
Spit it out.
All right, look, just because I've been elevated to a member of the master race does not mean you have to be so mean to me. But yeah, as you can tell, I like CS. I'm also asking for your money. I do appreciate people who have donated. Yeah, just more reviews. And I've got the Little Mermaid coming up. And continuing my dreams of having those 4 old ladies from book club crushed to death by a big bomb. And other than that, just more reviews, more movies. You can follow me on the Twitter, and I've yet to be blocked by anyone, so I guess that's a plus. So that's pretty much it. So thank you, and God bless you all. Yeah.
God bless the USA.
God bless America.
Amen. We could use
America.
All right, then. Letting you guys know what we got coming up Friday night on Twitch and on Rumble. You have to be on those two to watch it. We're going to do another movie night. We're watching Dolomite, 1970s classic film, Ray Rudy Moore. It's going to be a great time watching that film. Very hilarious. So go check us out over there. On Monday night, we're doing 3 movie reviews. We're doing... The Little Mermaid? Rick's doing The Little Mermaid. Rob is doing the Robert De Niro Robert De Niro movie, and then I'm doing the Gerard Butler movie, Canizar, I believe is the name. So we'll be reviewing 3 movies on Monday night, and then next week, episode 50 of the Barroom Podcast. And by the way, if you haven't watched our episode last week with Chris Gore, it's still up on YouTube, and also our G4 Tech TV retrospective is still up on both YouTube and Rumble too. So go check those things out. So go ahead and give it a shout out to all my people here who joined us tonight for this episode: Orange Hat, Johnson, TW, Rick, Rob, and Cassie. And then for all you people in the chat here tonight, we have a special little privilege for you guys. I got a special message for Miss Brie Larson as we sign off here and we go away for the rest of the day. So good night. We'll see you guys later. Wave to the crowd and hit it.
Hey guys, it's Brie Larson, aka Captain Marvel. I'm here because Society Reviews didn't want to spend the end of the show pronouncing the names of the people in the chat, so I'm here to do it for him. Let's be honest, he wasn't very good at it anyway. Okay, let's go. Alex versus Evil, how are you doing, buddy? Nuke Dukem, see, I actually pronounced your name correctly, unlike some people. Doba Fett, nice to see you again. Neozoic, what is up, my man? Drax the Clown, that is a scary-looking avatar. Iman Rich the Swag Lord, I don't know what that means, but okay. Zero Dozer, thanks for joining us tonight. JEC, that avatar is pretty scary. DK, what is good, homie? CS Johnson, aren't you on the show? Why are you here? Cult Classic Cage, wasn't you talking shit about me not too long ago? Hey Spencer, I see you in the chat. I know you want some of this. Call me. Matsumoto Rico, what is that, like Korean or something? Bounding into comics, is that the Catholic dude who always talks shit about me? Copa Catania, how is the baby? Rob Motto, why are you still in Washington, dude? Holy shit, are you trying to get stabbed or something? I think that is it. If I didn't mention your name, you probably aren't that important. This is the end of the show. Good night. Goodbye. And now it is time to play some Spring Yard. Later, guys. Okay, where's my money, Jacob?